All right. Okay, that was very high. But anyways, I'm so excited, guys, to have. If I was McJ, I was gonna say, the police here. But anyways, I think I have the hyphenate, Takalani, Malivha.
It is I.
It is Taki.
I am here.
Hey, Taki.
Very excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited. I don't know. Like literally, we have been talking for so long. I don't know where to even start.
Yeah, to say there's a beginning to start from would be a lie.
Yes,
but
definitely.
maybe you could give people context as to how we know each other.
Yes, definitely. Mm-hmm. So you're listening to a conversation between Taki and Shepherd Pandeka, and we met in. Oh no! If we talk about where we met,
since
I remember exactly, because I was like, okay, wait, where did we meet? I was like, I wanted to start in high school because I think that's kind of like we met.
We re-met.
Yes, but we actually grew up in the same church, Assemblies of God.
Indeed.
And,
Zanani branch.
Talking about Assemblies of God, I actually just met your dad as well. Came to my wedding.
Really?
Yeah, it was really
lovely.
nice. And then I think where it meant more was in high school, because at least we were not adults but we're older. We're seeing ourselves evolve as we grow up.
Yeah.
And
we spent, I think, a significant amount of time together, given that it was a boarding school.
It was a boarding school, yes. Exactly.
Versus just every Sunday, this time we were legit.
Literally, yeah. So unfortunately, we never in the same class.
No.
And then I think you stayed in R from grade
8 to grade 12.
Yeah,
yes.
So
and I'm very happy about that.
to give people
no regrets.
To give people context, it's like in surveillance there is like R, V, and D, Rob Van Dam, right?
Wow.
So it's like in grade 8 and grade 9, you're in the same class because you have not chosen your classes.
Yeah, it's an auto-assigned class. You don't necessarily get to pick. It's the class you're assigned, and that's where you stick for the first 2 years.
Yeah. So then you choose subjects that you want to do, and then from there it's like D was like super economics,
commercial subjects.
Yes, and then. V was like sciences,
strictly,
and then R was like hybrid.
Spillover is what it is.
Yes,
because few people were hybrid students. What really was the case was that if you didn't get V, because V was at the time strictly science, spillover would be R first, a little bit of D, and in the same way going the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Commercial, D was commercial first, mainly, not strictly, and then whatever spillover would then come to R.
I think you did one of the boldest move.
Wow, interesting. That's where we're starting. Boldness.
Yeah, it was like literally that was a bold move because no one wanted to do. What was that subject again?
As in my combination of subjects?
Yes, a combination of subjects.
And maybe for somebody who might not be familiar with the South African system, which I'm sure many people listening to this are, you are mandated, in a sense, to pick a stream, right? A group of subjects that will indicate the stream you go into.
Exactly.
For the rest of your high school, meaning the last 3 years of high school, which is where the different moving of classes would have happened for many people. Didn't happen for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where you pick the science stream, right? And then you end up in one class, or you pick the commercial stream, you end up in another. Typically, at least at the high school that we went to, commercial subjects were economics, accounting, and business studies. And then the sciences were obviously physical sciences, life sciences, as well as geography. Those were typically the clear-cut streams that you would have. I'm not sure that there are many others that have been introduced at that school since, but those were the two. What I did, and maybe this is the boldness that is being referred to, for me it was natural, and maybe later on I can explain why that was. I picked a combination of the two.
Accounting.
So I took accounting, physical sciences, and economics.
Yes.
So that was my combination.
It was to give you context, because I think this is your life. So looking at
let's hear it from your perspective.
Looking from my perspective, right? The reason why it was bold is because physical sciences was showing people flames. apparently, because
Apparently.
no one knew. We knew it from like grade 9.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
And the consensus was physical science will show you flames, and accounting will also be showing flames in grade 9, right?
Oh, I see what the boldness is. So I picked
So you
the
actually
best of the worst, I guess.
Yes. So
Okay.
when you did that, you're like, okay, oh wow, what's happening here? And I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm gonna say it, right?
Go ahead.
So Takalani was one of the let me just consistently top 3 from grade 8 up until grade 12. Was it grade 12 or grade 11?
Let's say top 5. I never checked. I think maybe that's another thing. I would say grade. I mean, I did finish matric, so.
Yes. you left in grade 12, right? Or 2011? I don't know. Were you in grade 11?
Yeah, I did complete grade 12. I just wasn't physically present for most of the year.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So I would say top 5 consistently. Because I think top 3 till grade 11, and then I think the pool got deeper, I guess, in a sense,
Yeah,
and more of our peers were able to strive and kind of enter that coveted top 3, which was made for great competition, and it was fun.
Yeah.
But yes, the
And how was that? How was that when you were like, let's say top 5, top 3? Was it like competition, or was something which you were just being tacky, the half in it?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Listen, there is a competitive nature to high school, right? So for some people, it's on the sports field. Some people, it's in the arts, agriculture. Cultural aspect of it.
Yeah.
Certain people, it's within social circles as well, right? There's competitiveness as to kind of who's the most popular or whatever.
Sure.
And for other people, it's within the classroom. I will say for me, a competition has never really been a motivator for me. So I never went into it saying, I'm going to be in the top 3, top 5.
Sure.
And like I said, for the most part, I just didn't know until maybe like award season or whatever. Like, oh, okay, that's what that means. Or when maybe, sometimes you catch a glance of like the marks and you're like, oh, okay, that's where I'm ranking. Okay, cool. Got it. Sure. And because I had such a different mix of interest and classes, just being in the top of one field does not mean when it aggregates out, you're going to be like across all streams, you're going to be great. So there was an element of competition, but for me, it was very much more competition with myself. There's a certain standard I went in. I had since primary school, right? I wanted to maintain that. So my competition, much as cliche as this sounds, really my competition was me, because I was doing something very different from what everybody else was doing.
Sure.
I couldn't benchmark myself against anybody else. Yeah.
And it makes sense when you say it that way, because you couldn't compare yourself with anyone else.
Yeah, I was a slightly
literally
different.
you were breath of fresh air.
Hi, boo. Okay.
Right? I literally, when I thought about inviting you, right, I have this one story. I won't forget it.
Oh my God, yes.
Right? So V, like we were just explaining about different classes, right? So there was this mathematics problem.
Okay.
Which, because the problem is with stories sometimes,
Yeah.
It can be a story about you participating in it, but it doesn't really register anything to you because it was not significant.
Sure.
Or it was just something.
Yeah. I have a feeling this is going to be one of those stories for me.
Exactly. So when I'm explaining this story, I was like, okay, probably she won't even remember, but
okay. But I'm curious.
I remember. So
let's hear it. Let's hear it. Yes, let's hear it.
So we're sitting down. Our class had geniuses, right? I don't want to say them by names, right? But for the sake of the podcast, it's right.
We know.
Yes, we know.
Yes.
Yeah. So we had this problem, and we couldn't get it. Literally, we couldn't get it, and we tried going up and down. Then the consensus, I think, was in grade 12V, right? We're like, okay, guys, look, this was showing us flames.
Yeah.
Let's try going asking the other geniuses.
Oh, in the other classes.
So
can I just say that is something V students would say? Oh, God.
Literally,
it's very characteristic of you guys.
And I'm sure you know who said that. It was between Deva and Neo Chuma, right? So we go there with I think probably it was even Deva who actually brought it to you, right? So we sit down and we give it to you this problem, and so you sit there. I think it was not that long. Like we spent probably, if studying was 1 hour 30 minutes before you go to your next break.
Yeah.
So we spent like 30 minutes, and then you sat down there and you worked on this thing. You looked at it, and I mean, you start doing like, you know, when you're well solving a maths, you try
here and
you
there.
try different stuff, and like,
Yes.
okay, and then you like, it's like you saw the answer. So you went, you know, when you're doing when you're studying, you already have the answer, but we need to find a way to get to that answer.
There. Yeah, show your work.
You chop that thing,
Hypo.
and we were like, like literally. You know, you were like our hero. You were like our hero.
Oh my God! I had a cape on in that moment.
Literally,
wow.
like that was.
I definitely do not remember that.
Yeah, literally, you wouldn't. That's why I was like, okay, I think you wouldn't remember that, but literally, because I think to give context, was with us, it was showing us flames. So for you, probably it was like. Superman just lasering someone else. You understand what I mean? But that literally just was like an upper echelon type of moment. So I was like, yeah, this is levels.
Okay.
And
well, I'm glad I was of assistance, even though I can't remember. I'm glad I was of assistance, even though I cannot remember.
Yes, I mean, like you really helped because you know when you're in grade 12, you start panicking that what if this thing comes and we don't know how to do it. Yeah. So you just wanna get a solution for everything, and at that point, literally, that's the story. When you get married, I'll just tell this story again.
Now I know not to invite you to my wedding.
Literally, it was like this literally for me.
Oh my God.
I was so excited when it.
Oh man.
Literally, it's the story when every milestone you make, literally, I'll just
refer
to this story. Like, okay, yeah, guys, it makes sense why.
Okay.
She is like
she's
this.
the girl. She is.
So, the other thing that when we were talking, I just realized about the school systems, right? Would you say that the system of St. Brennan's was, the school systems was actually good? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah. Well, the school system, I think, goes beyond the school, right?
Okay.
Because it's a public school. So, and I think maybe you can then evaluate it against other public schools.
Sure.
It was unique, given that, you know, public school on private property and some influences of the Catholic Church were still very much present in the school. And I think that served its purpose, personally. There are ways in which we got to, one, know each other as peers. One, got to intimately know our teachers and educators and people kind of who journeyed with us during that. Because if you think of high school, it's a very volatile time for a teenager.
Yeah, true.
Physically, in all ways,
Every way.
It's a very
Yeah,
volatile
true,
place.
true.
So if you have adults that are consistently in your corner, present, seeing you grow in a particular way, they can hold you up to a certain standard consistently.
Yeah.
And you can't really hide from that. Whether you rebel against that or lean towards their guidance is a different story.
True.
But having that is actually a privilege that not a lot of public schools have, or at least students in public schools have.
Definitely.
And many other ways in which I think the place itself was different and the uniqueness of it served its purpose, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
So I think those elements, for the most part, have played in the benefit, I think, of students. For a long time, I don't know if I can say that is the case right now. I haven't really been following up with what's been happening.
Sure.
So please don't hold this opinion to what's happening currently.
Yeah, currently, yes,
Just like to say that.
That's another time, yeah.
But at the time, I think those were blessings in disguise and kind of deliberate blessings as well. I think to us as students, and I think the first part for me stood out the most. Right, much as you have great teachers. I mean, a teacher for me, a teacher is a teacher is a teacher.
Sure.
But the environment in which they get to apply themselves can make a difference, right? But the first part that I mentioned was on kind of how you grow with your peers. Like you mentioned, when you're in a boarding school and you spend this much time with your peers, the ways in which you get to help each other supersede, in a sense, they far exceed what other people kind of get. Just on the amount of time you spend together alone,
Sure.
right? Like you said, if it's not in the classroom, it's maybe the study session after class or the evening study sessions.
Sure.
And we're doing that 7 days of the week. At some point, you are literally in study sessions outside of the classroom material, or at least classroom teaching time, 7 days of the week. I think we had a lot of collaboration, personally, from my perspective.
Sure.
And not collaboration, kopa. Not, oh my God, can I copy your homework?
It was for other students.
Yes. Not to say that didn't happen, but
Yeah.
that is not the only form of collaboration we got to have and experience.
Definitely, yeah.
So yes, I think that translated in even the sessions that we held ourselves as students, peer-to-peer kind of teaching, training, helping and all that kind of stuff. I feel like it even translated sometimes to the classroom. I remember certain classrooms where us as peers, if you knew you kind of understood this material better, you could even collaborate with the teacher during class teaching time to teach your peers as well.
Yes, I remember that.
Yes, and that is special. That is not something that happens across board. But when you know, listen, this is a team of students who can work together on a solution and prepare ahead and then kind of teach their peers as well. That is something that I think was great about the school. And I don't think that speaks to the system of the school by way of being a private school, but more of a lot of years went into building that community, right? Into kind of crafting and molding it to what it is right now.
And it seems like even each, I don't want to say generation, but each year, like each grade 8, like the guys who were ahead of us were in, when we were in grade 8 or in grade 9, they had their own community. Yeah. And it's like, literally each and every community creates
their own vibe. They have their own understanding.
Exactly.
When they advocate for each other, it's for a particular thing.
True.
And even their boundaries, right? There's certain classes where you're like, oh, that class does this for each other. And that definitely wouldn't fly in a different class.
True.
And stuff like that. And as you kind of move and interact in different ways, right? Like in whatever ways you think high schoolers are interacting, they're interacting. When all those different circles, they form, they break and all that kind of stuff, a lot of character is being built. And I believe it translated into how we journeyed academically through that. I think it's that community and knowing we are accountable to ourselves and the adults around us, I think is what set us apart and served the school great academically and socially for a long time. Again, cannot speak for my time past that.
Yeah, true.
Or at least any time past my time, I guess is what I meant to say. Yeah. So.
True. I think when you're saying that, because one of the things that I realized that we had, which was, I don't know if I don't know a lot about others. Public schools, things like houses and that sport, so that was not common.
Yes.
So when I'm looking back, I'm like, I was actually in a good school.
Yes. It was a good school. That cannot be disputed.
That was a very good school.
Yes.
And the award system was amazing.
That's true.
The one that you got. What do you do? Do they just call it a blazer, or there's a name for it?
I don't know. Honors blazer.
Honors blazer.
That's what it is.
So she was part of the people who got an honor.
I can't even tell you where mine is. I have no idea.
It's understandable.
I have no idea where it is.
So to give context of what an honors blazer is, that means you have been a very good student and also an excelling student.
An exemplary. I think
an exemplary, yes. Yeah. So whilst others are wearing uniform, you also have a blazer. That's what it means.
Yo, very well. Others are wearing uniform. I mean, you have to wear uniform too, just on top of that.
And
I believe now there is a universal blazer system. It's just you get a special one. Yeah.
Oh,
the school now has blazers added onto their uniform. Yeah, it's just a different one. That's what I heard.
But in our time, that was not like that.
Yes,
yeah,
that was for a select few.
And literally, for chaps like us, we knew. I know.
You were gonna make the cut.
Oh no! I was not gonna make it, right? And I, for me, literally, to be honest with you, I feel like I had one of the best times of my life in high school, because
high school was great.
Yeah, I lived.
Other times, I mean, other parts of life have been great too, but in high school was like litty.
Yeah, it was lit,
it was
man.
Good.
Like having all these different, like things like discourse, like
wow,
you understand what I mean? That's why when I look back, I'm like, no man, my school was different and was actually a good school.
It was holistic.
Yeah, literally it was.
Because if you think, even just to add on to that list, the amount of opportunities we got, right? Again, just being a public school, because our teachers were that invested in us, essentially spreading our wings beyond what the public system offered.
True.
They brought a lot of opportunities to us that a lot of other schools maybe didn't.
Yeah.
And like, when The Lion King came to the first time Broadway in SA, we got to participate in that. And that literally a teacher can hear about something, enter the school, and then bam, 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 we're there. Winter schools are not just essentially reteaching of the material within your local school, other universities that are kind of collaborating with other high schools. Most of the time, we were the only Limpopo school in a lot of these opportunities that we participated in. So it was a good school, holistic in that there were fun times, really it was educational times.
Yeah, it was not perfect,
No, by no stretch of the imagination is that school
the
perfect.
Side was like
Police. No. Yeah, but I would agree. It's a good school, great experiences. But a lot of the other systems around the school itself, I think, made it what it is, at least from my perspective.
So you get this, like you were talking about opportunities, right? So just moving on to the next phase.
Down the timeline. Lots isn't being said in between, but I think enough highlights have been mentioned, yes.
Yeah, so, by the way, I don't know, it doesn't matter, but we were 99.999 pass rate. We only one person failed.
Really? Who?
Yeah.
I wasn't around for results, so I don't even know that.
We'll speak it.
Oh, yes, of course, that's a very insensitive question of which, gosh. Yeah. Yes, but okay, one person didn't make it.
So it was just one person, and we were the last breed of our principal, Mr. Mukoma. No, Mtupa was our principal. But
were the last people to know him?
After, So how it worked, it was Mr. Mukoma was nurturing us up until grade 9.
Yes.
I think he left when he was grade 9. So which means Mr. Mtupa's children
the class behind us.
The class behind us. So literally we were like the creme de la creme from Mr. Mukoma, because he was so much of a good principal, though he was very strict and
in all the right ways, man. I mean, legendary.
Yes, literally he's legendary.
Yeah, legendary.
Because literally everyone,
he is the blueprint when it comes to principality.
Exactly. You get what I mean? So they were saying that we were the last under his care. That's why when they say, okay, so that was
but if he left when we were in grade 9, then it means our grade 8s.
Our grade 8s probably still following. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So we were second to last, I guess.
In a sense, because actually he left in the middle. So
they didn't get a full year with him.
Yes.
You guys are specific.
Exactly.
Okay, we were the last class there.
Exactly. So when we were in grade 12, right? So we were the last group under his hands, right? So we were they were saying that we were gonna get. So we were actually trying to get 100% pass.
Yeah, that was the goal.
Yeah, that was it. That was the goal.
And again, a very peer-to-peer kind of pressure that we put on ourselves, right? It didn't have to come from the administration.
And I mean, even talking about peer-to-peer, we were even helping each other. That hey guys, there's no one who's gonna be left behind.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a time during my trials. I don't know if you wrote trials.
Trial exams. I did. I wrote all the exams. Please, I just like to put it on record. Please, I wrote every exam there was to write. Okay, I skipped the classroom part, but I wrote every exam I was supposed to write. Okay, let's just put it out there.
Let me also register it in my mind, because Taki left us.
Yes.
Our genius left.
I think my physical presence made people feel like, oh, she's just been skipping stuff. And I think somebody, years later, I ran into somebody, randomly. And they're like, oh, you got special treatment. I'm like, hey, but what are you talking about? You got to skip trials and then went straight to exams. I'm like, you do understand, if I had zeros for my trials, I wouldn't have gotten the marks I got for my finals. What? That's not how
it works. Yeah, sure.
And even if it did, I did write my trials. I just like to put it out there. Let it be known.
Yeah, I think it's very much important as well, just to put it out.
Yes,
there.
yes.
So the class,
I did not
you,
skip
you,
any.
you don't have to answer the same question over
And over.
Like, just go listen to
Yeah,
Stake
it was
podcast.
just that one person, to be fair. Just that one person. Yeah.
Go listen to the Stake podcast.
Yes. Yes. In fact, this will now be your reference.
So, where were we? So we were the last under his care, right? So we were trying to push for that. That 100%, right?
Yes, and the peer-to-peer stuff you were mentioning.
So I remember even when we were writing trials, Mema Water literally took us by the hands. All there's this animal which was famous in our time called the dodo.
Okay.
You know about the dodo, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was dumb.
Where's this going?
It was dumb. That's why it became extinct.
Oh no!
So I didn't.
Not at all where I thought that was going.
So this is for myself, guys. I don't know about the other guys. I'm just keeping to myself.
You
right?
weren't a dodo.
No. I was okay because, but for my maths, I was literally very terrible, right? And then I remember, it was not trials. It was actually June exams where I didn't get. You remember, the pass mark was like 30, and you didn't pass. So it was that terrible, right?
Yeah. So she took you under her.
So she took us, and literally we remember we used to have those classes talking about peers and us being collaborators.
Yeah.
So you'd come sometimes and also come and help us there doing some.
Okay,
some
I'm vaguely remembering this. Yes.
Yes. So it's literally, I feel like I had a lot. Not that I have a lot of memories, but I feel like that was one time where literally I was just capturing almost everything that's happening around me. Or maybe that's just because of how I am. That's how I built.
Yeah.
Right. So
probably.
literally.
Or a combination of both.
Yes, exactly. So we used to go through that so that we can make sure that our trials has to be way better than where it is right now.
Yeah.
So we went through all those ordeals just to try to understand mathematics.
Yeah.
The other ones I was okay, but I think mathematics was a pandemic at the time. Everyone was literally having problems with it, and I remember.
I don't know about everyone, but for the most part, it can be a problematic subject.
Yeah, so we were literally having a lot of problems, and I remember we had to sit down and we have to have after classes and make sure that we understand all the challenges, right?
Yeah.
So that time, literally, in terms of bringing the collaboration side of things, literally we were just working together to get that 100%.
Yeah.
And literally,
and also because we knew we were capable.
Yes, definitely.
We very much knew that this was something that was attainable for us.
True, and the thing is, even the history of the school, because we were 90s. Like there was no year there was like 80s and stuff. So we were like
the pass rate.
Pass rate, yes. Okay. So it was like a 90s pass rate. So we wanted to, and I think I remember now, Mr. Mkoma said that we are the most promising.
Yeah, he did say that.
He did say that, right?
A lot.
Yes.
But I kind of feel like he probably said that to a lot of classes.
Probably.
I don't think that's a unique thing he said to people.
It's a leadership. It's a leadership at the end of the day.
It's a leadership technique.
So apparently we were like the jam, right? And literally, and I think
we left an imprint.
Yeah, but I think we did because I don't know how things went after that, but we really tried, and it was just only that one person who had to.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, they didn't spoil it for us, but unfortunately for them. So
unfortunately, I mean, yes, it is unfortunate.
So, moving forward.
Oh my God. Okay. Now a lot of it is coming together, but I agree. I don't look back on any of my high school experiences as being terrible or being a blur or anything. And I wasn't particularly I think I was social enough. I wasn't really like out there or like really talk of the town or whatever. But I still had a great time. Like I had fun.
Even if you were also participating, I think even in running, there was a
sometimes.
sport. There was a sport that you were very good at. Was it running? I think it was running.
I'm gonna pass on that one because there might be people who have evidence to the contrary. So I was athletic enough. I stayed active.
Yes,
I stayed
yes,
active.
yes.
Participated in soccer for the most part.
Yes, that's
And
what
then running. Yes, I ran a few races on there, but not really the star of the show.
Sure.
Enough to just get the house points up. You just make it into the top 3. That's all you need, or top 5.
True.
You get enough points to not
Definitely.
go last, and then your house gets the points. I could deliver at least that.
I'm
So
so glad that there was no corruption, eh?
wasn't there?
But I don't think
for the most part there wasn't.
Yeah, there was
For the most part
corruption.
there wasn't.
It was already a buzzword.
It was above. Yeah.
Yeah, there was the
For the most part, everything
integrity.
was above. Yes, for integrity.
Yeah.
So that.
Oh, by the way, I think we were in the same one, De La Salle, right? Chivali.
No.
Hata.
Yes.
Oh, she was green,
Please
guys.
do
She was,
not ever
She was
associate me
green with what she did
with De La
there.
Salle.
Yeah,
I mean, shout out to De La Salle, but
De La Salle in our year, it was okay. Yeah, but I think apparently
really the battle was between Benedict and Hadza.
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
those were the big dogs.
Chivalia was okay.
Yes,
But De La Salle,
listen, they were contenders, but I think
Yeah.
they didn't have a strong profile, portfolio across board.
and actually you can't change that, right? You can change houses.
No, I don't believe you can. I think there are a few people, maybe when there's something that happened, I think when there was a whole, because some people leave, right? And then some people join classes. It's not common, but some people join classes along the way. And then we had a whole, we had to get registered and we had student cards or something along there. A few people were reassigned. And it was like, ugh, yikes. Because at first it's random.
Yeah.
And then if the randomness leads all the super athletic people in one house,
And
then
almost
that's a dangerous year to
it's
have.
like they just knew that Hata was going to take it. And it's like remember Teke was like, okay, I think this guy is a runner.
Oh,
So
no.
she's taking.
That's corruption then.
Maybe that's
Maybe.
the corruption we can't
Yeah,
see.
in the planning of it.
Like, are you in an outlet? You understand what I mean? I think maybe she was also.
So maybe you were looking for corruption in the wrong places. You should have been looking for it in the admin office.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where it was.
So
But yeah.
This is
Opportunities, high school.
yes.
space.
So we had I don't know who was affiliated with this gig, which is Allah, right? I don't know who it comes with, or maybe it was relationships that we have with the school.
Yeah. So I think it kind of stemmed from the relationship that St. Brendan's as a school had with Wits University. The summer schools or winter schools that we used to go to during the winter school holidays at Wits University. Like I said, usually we were the only or one of very few Limpopo schools there, but we got to interact with a lot of other schools, mainly from Joburg and surrounding areas. Not so much Cape Town, but
Sure.
like in the kind of north and middle South Africa, essentially. And I think from there, students from the African Leadership Academy and people who were scouting for students who would join the inaugural African Leadership Academy were there. So the first people that joined, I think, were discovered through TTP, Targeting Talent, which I did a different one at WITS, but Targeting Talent was a big program at WITS. So I think that's where they got scouted in a sense. They went through the application process. And then the first two that got into the inaugural class at ALA then essentially introduced St. Brendan's as a potential feeder school to the African Leadership Academy.
Sure.
So that's how that was formed. Over the years, obviously, different students that were affiliated with Wits University through their different winter schools then got... obviously, you get priority to apply. It's not exclusive that only particular people can apply. But if you have proximity to a particular program and they assume that, listen, for you to get into this program, you have to be a person of this kind of caliber or nature, then we can assume that you are closely related to what we're looking for at the African Leadership Academy. Sure. So that's how that conversation kind of kept going. So they got in touch with the school. And like I said, if the inaugural class got in that way, therefore African Leadership Academy had to build now pipelines, right, and relationships with the school themselves. So now they're going directly to the schools where most of the inaugural students kind of came from. So that conversation kept coming. Different people in different classes applied. I think years went by before the next crop essentially got in, because I think it's a huge ask, right? Because you are asking people to leave school, right? The high school system that they're used to kind of almost put to the side or even throw away. And I'm saying those two options because 2 are possible, and 2 and more are possible, in fact. But you're saying of all the hopes and dreams that they've had, right? Whatever visualizations you have about post-high school, what going to university in SA will look like, working in SA will look like.
Sure.
You have to put that aside to say, I'm taking a risk with the school that's new.
Sure.
Because by the time I got there, we were class number 4. Right?
So it was
new.
fairly new.
New. Now imagine the people who left grade 12 to be part of the inaugural class. That's a huge ask for them. So throughout those years, really people were looking for proof of concept, to be honest, right? It's to say, the school says they are this, they're affiliated with these people, they are starting their own curriculum from scratch, adding it with the British curriculum. So we did 2 curriculums at once. And they're saying, listen, leave school in high school and then move to a different high school that's a 2-year program. And then from there, you have the chance to essentially either go back, like roll back into the South African system, or essentially spread your wings across the world and go to a different university and essentially now start reimagining what your life could be. Whether that means you end up back on the African continent or elsewhere, back in your home country, but other countries within the African continent, all of that is just up to chance, right? It's more of what do you do with this opportunity and how did the die fall, in a sense, right? Because some things you can't really, you can plan, but plans and life, 2 different things. So that's how the pipeline or the relationship was formed. The pipeline was developed, and that's how essentially I got there. So from the first class, 2nd and 3rd did not have any representatives from St. Brendan's. And then the 4th class, well, actually, the 3rd class did.
The 3rd class was then.
Yes, right? The 3rd class did. But we were in the same year. So I think the way we applied, because we were approached at the same time. He got in the year we first applied.
Okay.
I got in the next year. And I didn't reapply. They were essentially just going through, because like when you're going through applications, you're going through the pile that maybe made it to a particular stage in the last year to say, okay, is there potential here for us to build a new class? Because I think the African Leadership Academy or ALA, is a very small, they take in a very small group. Now it has increased because they've, more of a capacity by way of space. But they take in at the time, about 100 or so. And they have to build that class. It's not just, survival of the fittest, random people kind of get to make it. They actually look at the makeup of the class. What countries are they from? What skill sets do they bring? What hopes and dreams do they have? What industries do they have an interest in, and all that kind of stuff. It's a very curated list of students. So even if 200 of us genuinely qualify to make it, and we make it to the last stage, the 100 that will get it make up a particular kind of body of students, yes. Sure. And that could be different each year, right? So one could be very much leaning towards public service. Another could be very much leaning towards like tech and entrepreneurship and startups. Another could be very much in the world of philanthropy. And then another set could lean heavily in the direction maybe of agriculture, given that we are, primary sector still thrives on the continent or whatever.
Sure.
Whatever it is that they feel this group can lend each other, right? That peer-to-peer kind of learning, because it's powerful. So they will put that together, and obviously that again passed the basic requirements.
Sure.
So I guess I did not make it for the 3rd year. Got in the 4th year together with somebody who was in grade 11 at the time. So the 2 of us kind of made it for that year.
Was it Kasani?
Patu.
Oh, Pat, home girls and home boys.
Yeah.
Come on.
So that's how we
was represented.
Very represented.
Wow.
Neighbors.
Wow.
What are the chances? We went to Hillside together. Went to St. Brendan's together. Went to ALA together.
Wow.
So that's how we kind of caught up to then be in the same ALA class.
Sure.
And got to be peers in a sense. And for me, because I'd gone to school a year early, by year, these peers, they were peers to me, I guess, in a sense, yeah. So first class, St. Brendan's had a representative. 2nd class, none. 3rd class did have. 4th class, yes. And then 5th class, I believe, yes. And then I'm not really sure what has happened since then. I haven't been keeping track. But yeah, that's essentially the the next phase that came for me. And maybe it might seem haphazard how we moved from high school to that. Essentially, I went to two different high schools for my high school experience. One, I left, I joined in grade 8, and midway through grade 12, had to kind of go start a different school year because their school year runs from August till June. In fact, today is graduation day. Congratulations to ALA class of 2020. But yeah, so because the school year starts pretty much towards the end of ours, I was good. But I mean, at the time, if you're in grade 12, by the time you write June exams, you're done with the teaching. Right. It's really more revision, exam prep, and all that kind of stuff. So I felt comfortable leaving, that I've gotten everything I can get from this place. I can relinquish some of my duties to the peers around me. I can trust them to at least hold the fort while I'm away. And any material that I miss, I'll catch up on the other end, which is, how I moved from how I got to know about the opportunity, how I got in, and then how I moved almost in a physical sense from the South African public high school system into the UK and bespoke curriculum at ALA.
How was it like in ALA?
It was good. It's a very demanding school. It's a very, very demanding school. It's exactly what I needed, I feel like. Because I do not say this to be cocky, I cruised through high school.
Okay.
There were a few challenging things here and there, but so many things came natural. I did not feel I had to fight extra hard. I wasn't the girl waking up super early or like staying updated. No, none of that. And so I was very much able to get what I needed from the classroom experience and then do a lot of practice just during the allocated study time. Nothing more, nothing less. I obviously, but I say nothing less because I did not shortchange the time that was allocated for me to get good at, to get good at what I needed to get good at. So that part I maximized on, but nothing more. I wasn't doing extra things, which is why I had so much time to do so many extracurriculars that sometimes maybe didn't make sense and all that kind of stuff. I maybe in a hyphenated way, was very attracted to eclectic things. And I did a lot of that, either on official basis, unofficial, low-key, high-key, whatever. So when I moved into a very challenging system. School was from Monday to Saturday. So 6 days. It's a 6 day.
Okay.
So we had a 6 day rotation. No. They had 6 days of your behind is on a chair in class, 6 days a week. And that's a lot. Our hours were long. We had a similar study time after school system. It was a lot. But again, to add to that, you are now moving two different curriculums. So I've moved from the South African NSC, NSC, it's called system, into two new systems now, right? So the transition is not just from one to another, it's from one to two. So we moved so I did some subjects I had to do like an O-level type class, but for the most part I was doing A-level, AS level and A-levels, right? So if you look up the British Cambridge system, that's what that is. So we were doing essentially that system. It was designed that way to give us access to international universities, right? Because it's an easy translation of the coursework when you present your high school transcript to say, this is what I did.
What was like the big differences in terms of... do you still have like the same subjects like mathematics?
Not really. They're stripped up. So for example, physical sciences, you have to take either physics or chemistry. Yeah, you can't. There's no amalgamation of that. The rigor was much, much, much more. So it was hard. I won't lie. The transition was hard from one to another. So again, it's a challenge that I needed because again, I was way too chill. Too chill. Oh my God. Way too chill. That, and then they themselves, the African Leadership Academy, prides itself in having built a great leadership in African studies and now writing curriculum, right? It's only unique to them. You won't find it anywhere else. And they add that on to the normal hours that are required by the Cambridge system. So if you think of that, add on the hours and the transition. And also I was like, every 2 months moving from one province to another to catch up on these exams in one.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because I mean, I was technically still registered at both schools.
Definitely.
So that foundation, the beginning where other people were acclimatizing, I was missing in action. And so it just was very, very, very interesting.
Sure.
And again, all those peer connections that people could rely on to kind of, bounce off ideas, help them out. Because they were like brilliant, brilliant students. South Africans were in the minority at that class. At least in my class at that school, there were 8 South Africans in my class of about 90-ish.
Sure.
So you are meeting the best and the best from all over the continent, the African continent.
Yeah.
So people could bounce off ideas of each other. Others obviously are coming from schools that still have a very strong European footprint.
Just hold on. Let me just pause it. Let me just gonna pause, guys. I'm gonna come back now. Okay, we are back. So I hadn't used the pause button before. But anyways, I think you were explaining that it was challenging, and then there was different people from...
Yes. So the peer connections that other people got to have, mine were very thin. It's not to say they were absent, that would be a lie, but they were thin, again, because I wasn't really... They couldn't figure out who is this person. She's here, she's not. Is she whatever? And I know there is another South African student that, in fact, after we got our matric results, just decided, this isn't worth the hustle, right? Because for them, in a technical sense, you are repeating high school, but you're doing a very different system.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, for me, the rigor and, like I said, the challenge and the dynamism of the 2 curriculums that were built were very different, because the bespoke one that the African Leadership Academy built for themselves was very much at its core fashioned around the business school at Stanford University.
Sure.
You can imagine that's a grad school program that is being re-engineered for high school students, past undergrad down to high school. What is expected of you by way of hours, practice, practicals, or whatever is very, very different. And it's a very hands-on experiential learning type approach. And there was a whole team of teachers who just taught the specific curriculum, and then the ones that taught. So when you hired as a teacher for one of 2 streams, the Cambridge system, because then you have certification for that, you are qualified for that. There's a board in the UK that kind of helps with that. And then the other one is more bespoke, and it's very much designers, people who are leadership trainers and all that kind of stuff that's usually taught at an executive level to professionals or graduate students who are doing a master's program at elite institutions. That is what we got to experience at a high school level, which is fantastic, great, amazing opportunity. But understand it takes a lot from you. And it took a lot from me, I won't lie. Till this day, I say the most burnt out I have ever been. And trust me, I do a lot of things. But the most burnt out I've ever been was in high school. At that high school, at African Leadership Academy. Maybe the travel. Maybe the travel added onto that. Maybe the whole DMACAR situation added onto that. I don't know. But in general, I just felt the school demanded a lot of it. It's very high standards. They demand a lot of you. And quite honestly, what they expose you to is worth every ounce of effort. Sometimes maybe you are pushed a little beyond your, comfort level. Sometimes maybe pushed a little beyond what your health can take. But, sometimes it's kind of knowing when to push back. But otherwise, that's how challenging it was. And that's maybe more specifically what the challenge was for me by way of like the transition and all that kind of stuff. A lot of hours, lots to do. You're always thinking about kind of what to do next. And I mean, after that, the world is your oyster, but you got to work for that oyster.
So which means... you said that it was one of the most challenging, and then burnt out. Like you said, it was what you felt like it was also burnt out. The opportunities when you're there, do you kind of like see? You kind of like map out. Okay, this is what the type of person I'm going to be. Or
I could be the kind of person I could be. Yeah.
Or is it something which is still vague? Like, say, for example, when we finish our high school, we just enter into varsity, and literally everything's still vague. You're like, okay, right.
So what am I gonna do?
You understand what I mean? So at Allard, do you kind of like have an idea of, okay, I am gonna be what you're doing now, which we're gonna be talking about as well. At a point. So did you see yourself as that person and start adding more,
Yeah.
or you were still open to experiencing more?
Both, right? And I'll maybe give an answer to that from my perspective.
Sure.
But I'll maybe lay the groundwork first.
Yeah.
The school itself has a very strong team of guidance counselors, right? Which maybe not every school has, but at that price point, that school better have guidance counselors. You are assigned a mentor, right? It's not by chance I have to go look for one. You kind of have one that you kind of, in a group of 6, you meet every Wednesday, you have lunch together. That's one. Then you have guidance counselors who are there just to help you map out your time post ALA. That's what they are hired for. They are, in most cases, hired from the university environment. So that's who so whoever's working in your career center, that's who is being poached to work at that institution.
Sure.
So there are people who know not just the intuition, but the science of what it takes to help you shape what your career could look like.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I started re-engineering what my life could look like. The values, the basics, and the desires, for the most part, stay the same. But essentially, how I could apply that, literally, my whole world was turned around.
Sure.
And the personal perspective, to maybe help answer that question, was more for me specifically. I think much of what I thought my life would look like was stripped down. Like, it's almost like you have to take it, take a hammer, just break it down. And the break it down hurts because you're really letting go of a prized version of yourself.
Sure,
in my mind, there is this esteemed TK that, is a particular way, moves a particular way, is regarded a particular way. And then as you're going through the school system itself, before you even start thinking about what it will be, it's so challenging. It strips you of everything you thought you were. And now we are, bare minimum, engage with your values. And it's a very strong values-based type of school. Engage with your values. What do you care about in the world? What tickles your fancy?
So you're actually having that conversation at a very early stage, right?
Yes, and in a deliberate way. It's not something that just happens in your mind.
Because you see, we for me, I had the privilege of having to meet a very good pastor who had to do that breaking down. Like, I never read a book. Like, literally, the only time I went to our school library was when I was looking for a novel. I found a novel. I fell in love with that novel. Then I lost it.
Oh, no. So did you have to pay the fees?
No. Aloquis.
What happened to the book?
I was in the library. I remember if I even worked in the library. And I think I was working in the same year with you. I don't know if you remember. You worked in the library,
yes,
right?
Yes. Oh my God, yes. Actually, maybe like 3 years, 2-3 years.
Yeah. So
I don't know, type situation.
Because I was in the for the sake of this podcast.
Oh, okay. For the sake of the podcast, on record.
Yes. So where was I going with this?
You did not have to read a book on leadership.
Yeah, so the values, right?
Values.
So literally, I started learning about values because I realized that I'm a life wire. Literally, wherever I go, I just try to have fun, even when it's time for business.
Yeah.
So it's something which I had to learn. And imagine you're learning that at a very later stage in high school, in varsity. So it was like, you see, this is very much important. So I feel like also on that point, because I don't think we at our high school we had to sit down and like, what are your values?
No.
Though we talked about it, but it was not like...
You adopted the school values.
Exactly.
And which is really symbolic of kind of schools that are related to a religion or a particular congregation. It kind of... denomination rather.
True.
It's you embody. That's why your parents, traditionally it's why your parents take you there to learn the Catholic way, the Lutheran way, the Anglican way.
Definitely.
Those are the values they expect you to live with. Anything of yours is really secondary to that, right? Because they assume the values of the church are the values of Christ, or the values of, or at least that we believe you and the families that you're going to build should abide by. Therefore, anything on top of that should be secondary and not primary. So that's pretty typical. So I don't think we had a deliberate, look into yourself. What is the order in which this, much as you might embody them, what is the order in which they show up in your life? How do you hold them? Essentially, what's priority, as well as others that maybe also don't feature as much for you. Those are not conversations we're having.
No, I'm actually happy that you mentioned that actually you guys were actually deliberate. And at least it makes you be able to look at yourself and kind of like understand, okay, this is have been my values, and let's try to sharpen those ones, because like you were saying, that you have to deconstruct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Deconstruct the ideas, and
yeah.
then get down to the values, and which is why I can confidently say a lot of my personal values have remained the same, and I apply them in many different ways.
True.
Be it how hyphenated you. In every country I've lived in every industry I've worked in every social circle and community I've been able and been privileged to be a part of, those things have stayed the same. But I had to know them first in order to identify them as a common thread across all those things. Yeah.
Talking about countries that you lived in after Allah,
Yes.
you can just tell me, because like I was saying that I was doing my research.
You were doing your research. It's
Right?
good. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So you went to, what is the? Wait, I'm trying to remember the acronyms. UT something. Is it UT? UT. Yes.
UT, yeah. Straightforward. Yeah. UT.
University of Texas. And then how was it like there?
It was great.
Really?
I mean, I feel like I'm just having a great time in life, man. It was great. I had
the main character.
No.
Unless extras.
No. I do not have main character energy. No, not in that sense. But I feel like in many spaces that I've been planted in, I've been able to kind of, understand the lay of the land enough and just be like, okay, I can work with this.
Sure.
For the most part, it was great, right? Again, the transition was the tough part. You can't be uprooted from what you've known and loved. Obviously, prior, right, with St. Brendan's to ALA, it's what I've known and was comfortable with for a long time. There was a time period element there to how engraved I was to that system and that world. With ALA, it was 2 years, but the depth, right? It was very deep,
intense,
enriching, intense experience.
Sure.
Moving from that to a different country and just university in general, right? That for me was how my peers moved from when we finished matric in 2011, they transitioned to university. I was now experiencing that in 2013. So I'm experiencing that, and I'm experiencing it in a new country, and I feel like that has just become the pattern in my life. That it's not just one transition. You're now transitioning on many levels. But it was fine. It's exciting, right?
Talking about the transitions, I'm sure you're going to go into that in details, right? What are the values of those transition to yourself? Because I figure it could help in terms of building character as well. So what was like the main lessons that you kind of like got from those different transitions?
Okay, let's see if I can extract 3 quickly without going into a whole sermon.
Sure.
There are many others, and obviously on the spot I will not kind of go into the depths of them. But the first one that has always stuck with me is curiosity, is the torch for me, right? We go into places with preconceived notions about who will be in those places, what people will be like in those spaces, and what the spaces will kind of yield, right? Like what they will be for us and what we'll get from them. Mostly you're wrong, and that's okay. And you actually can live in a very alternative and realistic world if you just hold on to that, because you're experiencing the world for what you expect it to be, as opposed to what it is. And that maybe leads me to my second thing. A thing is a thing is a thing, right? A thing is a thing is a thing. I've just kind of learned very much to see, and it might sound like bold and like out there, but see the world for what it is. I'm seeing this environment, I'm taking it in for what it is. So over and above being curious about what I'll find there and exploring, asking questions, trying out new things. When I do see things that I commissioned into my orbit by way of curiosity, or when I just experience them, random encounter, a thing is a thing is a thing. Just what is it? Right?
Face value.
Yes. Really, truly, what is it? I can get to its depth later. I can give it the benefit of the doubt or whatever. But my departure point is a thing. Is a thing. Is a thing. So that's true. The third one with transitions. It's more of who I can be, right? How I think about my potential changes so much, right? For me, it's not a matter of I have a lot or less of potential. But a new environment can essentially like bring out parts of you that were hidden in crevices you did not know existed.
Definitely,
And therefore your potential is no longer just in the domains that you knew. Now you have potential in areas you didn't even know existed that people could do or you had in you in a sense. So if I experience the thing for what it is, I essentially can then start identifying opportunities in which I can then add value into that space. And therefore the idea of potential has branches for me and not just the dial that goes up and down. In a sense. So I think those three would be things, values that I've extracted from the different transitions that I've gone through. They're hard. They're tough. But once you get through them, they're great. But back to the original questions about the transition, about kind of what it was like at the University of Texas at Austin. And I'm saying that because the University of Texas is like the University of California. It's a system of schools within the state. And then they have different branches. So you have UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC Davis, and all that kind of stuff. UT is the same. The main branch being the University of Texas at Austin, because Austin is the capital of Texas. So that's kind of how the naming essentially goes in that way. So the transition was hard, but kind of make it past that. But I had a great time.
Big culture shock. What was like?
Everything is bigger. So there's a phrase that goes, everything is bigger in Texas. They were not lying. If the food is bigger, the people are bigger, the cars are bigger, the highways are bigger. Everything is big. And if you know me in person, I'm a petite person. I'm not huge by any sense. So everything just felt like, this is huge. This is huge.
It's like when Joshua had to go, like everyone is big.
Yes.
When they're doing a report,
Yeah.
Did it feel like that?
Yeah,
as well?
it felt, it's overwhelming at first. Because you're just like, whoa. Everything moves fast, everything is big. There's that. But I think other aspects I wasn't really as culture shocked by. Because one, a good number of my teachers at the African Leadership Academy were American, at least at the time. So as we're engaging, again, small knit community, no more than 200 students, boarding school. So we spent a lot of time with our teachers who were in their 20s as well. So these are people who are, not far removed from the university experience and not far removed from their time in America. So they got to share a lot of what it was like. So I actually had a good background as to, So I didn't have to have a wild imagination that was then kind of like challenged. It was more of the groundwork and kind of the conceptualizing that I built was very much on real stuff that actually happened. And not just like stuff that happened on like in the movies on TV or whatever.
Even movies, they kind of like give you an idea of this is how.
In addition, though, I did have a teacher who taught me leadership in my second year. So you have different teachers. First year, you're taught by one teacher. Second year, you're taught by a different one, for different perspectives. Because the second year is more hands-on. You're actually running businesses in your second year versus your first year. Leadership and entrepreneurship was kind of one group.
I would love to hear about running businesses. How is it?
So
at school running a business?
Yes, because the African Leadership Academy is an economy unto itself. Right, in and of itself, it is an economy. It has a virtual money system that runs within that and everything. So we have. So I ran the salon, for example. There was a bank. We had an auditing firm. We had a tuck shop, kind of spaza type situation. We had an art studio where you could buy art. Different, like the class is divided into groups of 3 or 4, and then you start a business. We had a photography business. We had a AV type people who ran all the events on campus. And then there was a pastry, like a bakery type. Whatever it is, the businesses that exist in the world and deliver a service there definitely can. You can find them in the African Leadership Academy. They've built it such that it is a microcosm of the world, right? You simulate the world, except you get to see we have student government within there. If the government was setting rules for the private sector, what does that look like? Again, that's how challenging. That's why when I talk about like how challenging and demanding it was,
I see.
You on top of just normal schooling, you in the classroom for entrepreneurship, African studies, and leadership. And then you have to put that in practice. And you have real customers. These are not play people.
Sure.
We had a board. So you have board members. So as a person who ran a salon, we had a board. So these were people who ran actual salons outside in the real world, in air quotes, and people who ran beauty empires or whatever, who were friends of the school, who would then come in and serve as our board, because every business of a large scale of a particular nature is held to account by a board, right?
Sure.
So we had that as well. So we were a fully functioning economy.
So you were like, I actually like that, because it kind of like, it gets you into the world that you're actually going to enter. Because I had this concept, not a concept rather, I would say we're doing things that we never thought we were going to do. Because literally when I was thinking of being an engineer, I was not thinking of what I'm doing now. I could have chosen something else. But when I ask a lot of people, you're like, hey man, so are you doing what you actually wanted to do? And they tell me that, no man, we're now doing this. Yes, I loved it from the beginning, but if I had to really sit down and choose, I was not going to go this route.
Yeah.
And literally, I find it a lot like similar with a lot of my peers.
Yeah,
That, hey, guys,
it's actually the norm. And I think that's what we need to be fair and open about.
True.
The norm is that you will not end up where you think you would. And that doesn't mean a bad thing. It does not mean you will fall from glory or whatever, right? Or whatever idea you had of yourself. It's that really your perspective is very limited. You just don't know that it is.
Yes.
But it's very limited. And once you actually put things into practice and get exposed to people who are practicing in different ways, then you realize what? Because even sometimes some of the fields you're practicing in now did not exist when you were in high school. And even though that space of time might have been 5 years, a lot can happen in industry within 5 years. And so if you end up just not being what you wanted to be, or doing specifically what you wanted to do, that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, most people have that as their testimony in life, in general.
It's true, because what the reason why I was saying that is, I also appreciate the fact that there is an economy which you're already participating in, which gives you an idea of how, because that's how the world works.
Yes, and you understand your value add, and I think that's the biggest thing,
exactly.
Right? I then went on to, at the University of Texas, do a liberal arts degree. Yes, it was in economics and psychology, but it was a liberal arts degree. And that meant that I understood that my value add wasn't necessarily in kind of like the training that I was going to get in university. The ways of thinking, the ways of applying yourself, the ways of looking for opportunity in the world. That's what you kind of need to, and practice really gets you there. Because a lot of people then start realizing that once they start working, because in school they're there to just get, this is the ABC, the 1, 2, 3. I get the piece of paper and then I go apply it, and then the world starts opening up to me. I got that experience in high school, which is why, again, when people say, oh my God, you repeated high school, I'm like, oh gosh, no.
It was.
No.
Yeah, it was.
It's night and day.
Two worlds apart, yeah.
Very, very night and day. Some ways they might intersect and complement each other. But that's how rich of an experience I had. I wouldn't trade that for anything. In fact, there are many other classrooms I walked into post high school that don't even match. Like, I even got some credits. Like, I got university credits from my high school classes. I had to skip some classes in university because that's how enriched the experience was.
True.
So it really, it's a special place. We did a lot, and it definitely, again, maybe to come back to the line of conversation we're in about kind of like my time in Texas, culture shock and all that. I was guided a lot by people who just knew what they were doing and kind of had the experience and therefore imparted that.
We thank God for Allah.
Yeah,
I mean, South Africa.
Yes.
South Africa public schools can learn a lot from that.
From the ALA
so
system,
before we go to UT, right?
Okay.
I figured you might have had options.
To what?
For different varsities.
Yes.
Why UT, and which were the options that you had?
So for me, I had obviously options in South Africa first.
Okay.
So those were still on the table.
Okay.
So those are still open, and kind of had to.
So like which options? I just want you to put the options on there.
No, a few. Okay. I'll not mention all of them. A few.
Okay.
So Stellies, UP and Wits, right? Okay. So I'll just mention those three. I don't think I had actually applied to UCT. In my mind, I didn't apply to UCT, but when I went back for my master's, my name was already on the system. I was like, wait, I have a student number. What's happening here? So I think I actually did.
Sure.
Because I think maybe when I was thinking back, I remembered it's a big part of maybe why I had to do the NBTs. because UCT, the NBT is kind of headquartered.
Sure.
UCT, and they were big. That was big for them.
Sure.
That aptitude test. So yeah. Anyway, so those three.
Yeah.
Obviously, you put in your three options. First, at the time, I was going to do industrial engineering. I think.
Oh wow!
So
Just like my wife. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
That was the first option, and then for a good number of some combination of accounting and so I was okay with being a CA, and that's the thing, I was okay with being a CA.
Okay.
Gosh,
okay.
as though that's just like a thing you're okay with. That and some version of economics, some nanotech that I was interested in at the time.
Sure.
Because of the winter schools that we did at WITS, we did a lot of at least the stuff that interested me was a lot of in the mechanical engineering kind of division and stuff like that. So there were sub fields there that I got interested in. So I applied for a good number of those.
Internationally, which options do you have?
Quest in Canada,
and
UT. Because realistically, the others I don't count them because you waiting list and then second round, or because you have to apply. There are 2 waves, 2 sessions of applying. So one part is in December, and then the second part is in March. And then I think ones that were, to me, looked like viable options were Quest in Canada as well as the University of Texas in the States. So it was between, for me, it came down to Canada and US. SA was, it made sense, but I had the other option open, and I knew I could always come back for other forms of degrees in South Africa. I could always come back. I always intended to come back. So I was like, we can tackle that later.
Yeah.
I think the tough part was I had a number of full scholarships for the SA universities. So I kind of had to translate some of that to the US system. But by the time I chose the University of Texas, I actually then had found a full ride scholarship, everything paid for. So then I didn't, it was no longer an issue. Yeah. So I chose UT mostly because when Canada is very cold, I think that's up
yes,
here.
That's what I said. You were running away from the snow.
It's just, and it wasn't really running away. If I didn't have to, I didn't want to. So I was good with having a different option.
Sure.
And also as a school, what it offered was slightly different from UT, but I think what UT kind of had as an edge over Quest was UT and Austin in general, what it has become now was a rising tech kind of sub-capital in the South, right? It's now called the Silicon Valley of the South. At the time, it was the rising Silicon Valley of the South. So, if you're familiar with South by Southwest, the conference, obviously now Tesla is over there doing a lot. A lot happens in Texas, right? Like NASA is in Texas. The oil industry of the United States is in Texas. We have a Fed as well there.
You did what?
There's a Fed as well, so almost like a Reserve Bank branch.
Sure.
They're very limited in the States. So Texas has one and stuff like that. So it had a lot going for it. And if I wanted to spread my wings and attempt different things in emerging worlds and markets, I could do it at a pace that was manageable. Yes.
True.
And I got all of that and more. I think today, doing what I do in practice now, the exposure 100% happened at UT. And I don't think I would have had the exposure and the opportunity to practice it because none of it was in my degree.
Did you get a chance to practice?
Yeah. I got
in UT?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So the ecosystem around even student organizations is still very industry right? It's industry facing. They are the student clubs and South Africa has a bit of this as well. Student clubs are funded by industry giants, right? And at the time, a lot of what was emerging by way of tech, they were tapping into, because it makes sense, right? We're literally 6 streets away from downtown is where the university is.
Sure.
It makes sense to kind of go onto that campus and say, hey, young talent, do you want to pivot, add on to your degrees, try out a few things? A good number of people who I was practicing with did not have technical or tech backgrounds or science backgrounds at all. But it was more of, okay, can we apply ourselves, dig our, toes and fingers into this and figure out kind of the value add? Again, when you understand what your value add is, it matters not kind of the degree or the industry or whatever. You know how to identify opportunity and how to add value to a conversation. So that's kind of how I chose UT. Austin was a big part of it. UT, it's a highly reputable school, great school. One of the best public schools in the States. Stand behind it, go Longhorns.
Come on.
Go Longhorns. But yeah, so that's how I got to that.
There's a thing that you guys were doing with gardening. It's like... I had to do my research.
Oh my God.
This was part of
Is there anything you did not find?
literally. So let me tell you, like one of the things that I checked. Just things it's a bit far at the moment because I actually had some of the things that I actually found.
Yeah, Rachel, we can pause. You can go find it.
No, okay, I'll just go get it. Yeah, okay. I'll pause. So I went on Twitter and
even
yes. Yo. So I searched Takalani. Okay, let me not say this because someone's going to do the same thing.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't.
Right?
But I mean, I guess what you find on the internet is fake.
Exactly. So I checked there, right? And so I followed people who... So I saw so that you were actually tagged by someone.
Oh.
So there was like... like some... I think it seemed like you used to do like gardening of some sort in your spare time.
No, that's not... Okay. Were we wearing green shirts?
Green shirts,
Okay,
yes.
okay. Let me just quickly explain. So, as one of my many interests, I joined an organization called Alternative Breaks.
Okay.
They work across universities in the States.
Sure.
And what they do is, so it's an alternative to the break. So usually spring break is when...
Sure.
And just maybe to give context, spring break in the States is in... the new year, so the fall so we have 2 semesters, right? The fall semester and the spring semesters. Okay. The break that you get in the middle of the spring semester, which starts in January, is where people go to, the Cancun, the Mexico experience, the Caribbean experiences, Miami. Yeah. That's what spring break is for. Okay. So they built this organization. They call it Alternative Breaks, right? It's an alternative to the groovist type break. And if you want to kind of use your break for good, that's what you do. There's a fee that you essentially pay to then be matched with a particular organization, right? That needs help. And usually there's travel involved in that.
Sure.
So the one that I got matched with, so I, joined that, assigned to that, and then decided, I'm going to go on one of these trips. They do a lot of civic education as well.
Sure.
And just kind of an understanding of, much as we are in, the best country in the world and like the richest country, there are a lot of people who are experiencing the hard end of the deal. And so as either a citizen or a person living here, how can you be of assistance to your community, broader community?
Sure.
And so volunteering with time and money was a big part of that. So the one that I got matched with once I decided I'm going to go on one of the trips was in New Orleans, right? If you know New Orleans, that's where Hurricane Katrina happened.
Okay.
We were there 10 years after it had happened, but still the devastation was just... it was palpable. Like it was very evident this place had been wrecked by the hurricane. And if you follow the politics post Hurricane Katrina and kind of, that was the time of President Bush and his response or like thereof,
sure.
There was a lot of neglect that happened, and it's still very visible in that community. It wasn't an exaggeration.
Yeah.
It wasn't party politics. It wasn't kind of identity politics. Those were real stories. And it's still very visible there. It's a ghost town in certain parts. It's almost like there are blocks that are like ghost towns, and it's like no, this city is way too advanced to be like this, to be in the state. So we got assigned to that. We did kind of like the training prior to that, a lot of education about the people there, the place there, the hurricane itself, and kind of the intricacies of kind of what the place needed, what it got, and what has been missing since. And therefore we were going to help meet some of those needs, right? Sure. So we had these university students from all over the country who chose an alternative break to go there. So other people went to California. Some people actually went out of the country to Mexico, to the border towns in El Paso,
sure.
In Texas, and other people went kind of up north to help with kind of migrant cities in New York or whatever. So that's where the green shirt kind of situation happened. I was in New Orleans, not in Texas, so that's a different state. But New Orleans, in fact, is a city. I was in the state of Louisiana, in the city of New Orleans, where you're there and then you actually get to see. So you did a little tour, and then on the first day, a church was kind of hosting us, so they had this lodging kind of experience. The second day, we did roofing. Right, so a lot of rebuilding is still happening. Lo and behold, many years later. still rebuilding homes. So there we had partnered with Habitat for Humanity,
Okay.
which I think does have a Cape Town division as well.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, so essentially, if there's somebody that has a need for a home, they essentially show up, right? They partner with the Home Depots of the world and stuff like that,
Sure.
department homes, stores, to build that. So then they have some people who can come in as labor, but people like us at that time act as in-betweeners, right? So we built, so our team in the morning, we built the driveway. So dug the driveway and then kind of laid the foundation, then put in kind of like the paving for that.
Nice.
And then we went for lunch break, came back, and then we did the roofing. There was a team that was doing the electric wiring inside, and then one that was doing the flooring. And then later on, they did the plumbing in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So in like 2-3 days, we can build a full home, like with a huge labor force. So just kind of the slating, and then putting the F channels, and then you kind of put everything in and whatever. All that. Anyways, technical stuff around building a house. So we did that, and that was second day. Third day is when we went into people's homes, so old age community, people who kind of stayed over there. Because actually, a lot of the genealogy within New Orleans has been split up because people left and kind of never came back because there wasn't much to come back to. Yeah. So families have been torn up. Since then. So there are a lot of people who are maybe we regarded as elders or the older population who are by themselves. Like the younger ones got onto whatever, moved to Houston, moved to kind of like upper Baton Rouge and all that kind of stuff, other upper parts of Louisiana. So the third day we went into their homes and essentially just cleaning up, just so essentially you dealing with the weeds, kind of aligning their planting system.
So it was kind of nice to actually see the best side of America and I don't want to use the word west.
The west side. The west side. Yeah. And it was important to me that I had a balanced view. So that was important.
Sure.
So we did that and did vegetable community gardens, kind of pulling stuff out and replanting and all that kind of stuff. And then the third day is when we went into the gardens, and I think that's the picture that you saw. So what we were doing is essentially the continuation of the community gardens. Local kind of organizations, they have built a lot of community gardens just to help out with kind of food produce.
Sure.
Because there are a lot of regulations around what you can plant where. In the States, you can't just plant anything anywhere.
Those guys, they actually they own the land.
Yes. There's a rule and a law for everything.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So city ordinance do allow for certain plots that have been vacant since Katrina to then be turned into community gardens.
Sure.
So that we spent the whole day, and I don't think I've ever slept as long as I did after that day.
Hard work.
I mean, shout out to everybody working in agriculture, on the farm. It was a lot.
Hard work,
But that's where that picture was. The cause was that, and I went there with a group of people who, some of which I'm still in contact with today. We had a great time. And it was revealing because, like you said, when you live in Austin, this stuff is good. And then just step out, right? It's a drive, fairly short by Texas standards, because Texas is huge as a state, huge.
Okay.
So it's a fairly okay drive, and then you go in there and then you see this is not just like a tale or that you see in the movies. Much like with KZN, if you went to KZN now, seeing it there is very different from what you're seeing.
Definitely.
And not different in the sense as the opposite, but the magnitude and the scale of just the damage, you can almost feel it within your person.
Sure,
and particularly if you're there to help, you're connecting with the place in a much, much, much different way than just seeing it on TV. So that's where that was from. I did not do agricultural farming for a hobby. No. That was just where I got assigned as a trip, but more specifically that day of the trip. Those are the pictures that made it to the ground.
I just want to, because now, before I just want to understand in terms of the things that you were saying that you learned a lot in terms of the exposure in UT, right? Yeah. So you got a chance to practice. So what were you practicing? Because I think you did, I think you explained that you did economics.
And my minor was psychology.
And
my minor was psychology.
Yes. So when you're practicing, what were you doing these two, or were you doing something differently?
No, not at all. Because number one, in psychology, you do need a lot of licensing to practice. So please don't go around psychoanalyzing people, giving diagnoses for things that you are not licensed for. Conversation is one thing, to then be prescriptive is another. So no, I wasn't doing that. My main degree was economics, which the practice there was more of the club that we started was more international student facing. So kind of discussing and bringing in a lot of guests that had experience with the practice of economics on a global scale, right? So the international economics is essentially what we were doing, because even with economics, international economics is a subdivision of, it's something you can specialize in, it's a subdivision of the industry itself. So no, the short answer is no, I wasn't practicing any of that. One, I was practicing in entrepreneurship because that was an easy continuation from my high school experience. So the Student Government Entrepreneurship Agency, so Student Government itself had an entrepreneurship agency. They had a fund for that, and pretty much different projects that we engaged in. I practiced a lot of. A lot of my friends did cultural clubs, so we'd go to kind of old settler towns. We'd go to the LBJ, so the Lyndon B. Johnson, who is the former president of the United States. His home is in Texas. So we'd go to the Presidential Library, was at UT, but his home itself is a bit far out, so we drove there. So we do a lot of like cultural experiences. So to say Texas is not a monolith, it's huge for a reason. It's not a monolith, so it's not a typecast. It's not a place that offers only one thing, right? The Texas way isn't only cattle herding or open skies and like cowboy hats and like horses.
Everyone with the
it has more to offer. And the place itself, if you take the history classes, which by the way, if you go to a public school in the States, you are obligated to take at least 4 history classes, which I had to take. And if you take that history, particularly the history of Texas, you actually get to see how much of an influence other people and other places have had on Texas itself. Today, you might be convinced that the Texas way has always been the Texas way and there's only one Texas way. But if you zoom out a little and maybe go into people's homes, smaller communities and places that are outside the metros, so maybe outside of Houston, outside of San Antonio, Austin, or Dallas, or the DFW area, Dallas-Fort Worth area, and maybe a little bit outside El Paso, you will realize that, man, there's so many countries and so many people have had an influence on Texas as is. So we had a lot of like clubs around there. So it was a lot of cultural and anthropological like practice in terms of that. But I think what I spent my most time doing was in what is now my world, the world of data science, and tech is the startup world. We had I'm not sure, obviously everyone's familiar with Michael Dell of the Dell Computers. He went to Texas. He, I believe, still lives in Austin. So his kind of aura has rubbed off a lot on the Austin startup world, at least in the earlier days. So there's a lot of support, a lot of just ecosystem work and infrastructure that they offered landed to the startup world in order for it to kind of be what it is. And a lot of the small businesses were giving, like right here. So there was a time where Uber, for example, wasn't allowed within the city. So then a lot of startups kind of were competing for that.
I see.
For that market, right? We see other people across the country and other citizens in Texas having access to this. What can you do? So stuff like that. There was a lot that went on by way of the media, lots of food startups, because Texas is for food, delicious food.
Talking about food. Because,
oh my God!
You see, when you're a podcaster.
Yes.
Okay, you see when you're a podcaster, right? Of course, you have listened to Joe Rogan, and
yes,
he advocates for Texas like nobody's business.
Oh gosh!
So
again, another reason why you can't listen to one person and believe Texas is a monolith, right? There are many more people who think very differently on different variations to Joe Rogan. But yes. He is a huge advocate for Texas. As are many people these days, by the way. It feels like everyone is moving to Texas.
So it seems like Texas is becoming like the place to be for America.
I will say in the last 5 years, I think Dallas is now the number one city that people from other metropolitan areas are moving to. So Texas, for a long time, Texans will tell you it's an amazing place. It's a place that has very bad PR, and it might sound controversial that me, a black person, international, I'm saying go live in Texas. Maybe I'm not saying go live in Texas, but it's a good place to be. Like, it's not bad. It has a lot to offer. Let me just say that it's a good place to be. It's a good place to be.
You say that a lot of Mike.
Yes. No, it's a good place to be. Makes sense.
I like because the thing is the reason why I was asking in terms of what were you practicing, and you were saying that you got to understand even the entrepreneurial side of things, right? And also
in the startup world, because I did a lot of like when you're an assistant to the head of product or whatever, stuff like that. So there's a lot of practice in that sense. And so the exposure is what I got.
I'm sure it was really nice because actually I don't wanna mince my words rather.
Okay. Say it as it comes to you, and then we can refine it.
Okay. So I feel like it was because the thing is most of the time I actually ask a lot of students and I ask them, hey man, so you're studying this, which company do you want to work for? And literally most of the students that I've talked to, they don't have an answer to that. And I feel like how are you going to have a relationship with a company if you don't know where exactly we want to go?
Yeah.
So that's the other reason for this podcast, because I can just bring as many professionals as possible, so that they can just give them, at least if you don't want to go for the information, at least just listen to on the information in terms of what this guy does on a daily basis. And you look at yourself, you're like, okay,
this is something I want to do.
You understand? So it's because what I wanted to say is that what you're doing or what you did, it seems like it also, I think I've said it before as well, that you said that it helps in terms of kind of like map out what exactly, it's like it's cutting down all the things that you didn't want to do, and it kind of like makes sense as time goes on. So now you finish in Texas. What made you want to come back?
Like I said, I wanted to come back from the beginning. The goal was always to return, right? Remember
sure.
So maybe just to the scholarship that I got to go to Texas was also very Africa focused. Right. So throughout my years there, I found ways to always be amongst Africans in Texas, but also to connect to people who were doing work on the African continent. So it was an easy transition for me back. That was one of the easiest transition back. It was still, had its challenges from kind of Texas to Cape Town, but it was still a fairly okay transition. I always kept with. Do you want to say something?
No, I wanted to ask because I know we have been talking about you learning and doing your work that side.
Yes.
You were getting paid, right? It was not.
Yes. Wait. Okay.
In Texas.
Yes, getting paid
doing your practice
to a certain extent, because obviously when you're on an international visa, which I was on an F1 visa, you can only work as so many hours. The rest of them has to be volunteer, right? You have a cap on, I think it's now 15 hours a week. And then you can only be paid. Obviously, there's what is it? The minimum wage. You can from that and up, depending on kind of the job that you got, but you can't work more than that because the primary reason of your visa is studying, not working. Right. So therefore, you can't
make
compete.
Money there or
as a student?
Yeah. Was it good for a student?
It was okay, but again, I had a full scholarship. My scholarship paid for housing, food, pocket money, devices, whatever. So maybe my needs were very different. Yes, my needs were very different. And I must always say that because then people are like, oh my gosh, she lived this life.
Sure.
No.
Sure. Because I think the reason why I'm asking on that aspect is maybe someone who will say, okay, I had someone who went to UT, and they kind of like don't understand the ins and outs and all that stuff.
So I would say when it comes to money, do not rely on your student job to cover your bills. You are applying for stress if you do that. Because school there, because if you think about how school fees work, and any international students, even in South Africa, will tell you this. The locals, it's a state school, right? So the locals, if you have a Texas address when you apply, there's a particular fee, right? You pay to the school, whatever, right? If you've been, whatever. Then as an international, there's an out-of-state fee. Often it's about twice whatever the student. And then there's an international, because out of state is still in America. You're still benefiting from the federal taxes that you pay.
Sure.
Out of the country, international is 3 times as much.
Oof.
So if you're going there as an international student on an F1, meaning undergrad, and you are relying on your student job to cover fees that are 3 times as much as the basic that everybody else is paying, maybe have another plan on top of that. Yeah. I'm always an advocate for international experiences, particularly if you've done an undergrad here. Please go do your postgrad somewhere. You know, if you can, reach for those stars. They are very much attainable. But do not rely on a student job to cover. It's a very stressful, because then now you're having to work multiple jobs. Others are under the table. You're being paid.
Studying,
yeah. And you're risking a lot of your eligibility to stay there for what I believe can be solved prior to you leaving. So I that's just me. And if anybody's looking for maybe further perspectives, they can go into that. But I had a scholarship, so my needs were very different when it came to money.
Sure.
I never worked for survival. I never worked even for leisure. I worked because, again, curiosity, all these things that I want to experience.
Sure.
I wanted to apply myself, understand my value worth, get to gauge what that is. But I never gauged that against the dollar amount that I was getting. Very different. But yes, you can make money. And listen, if you want to live like the modern, balling out Insta life,
Sure.
if your needs are covered, you can do a little bit of that on a budget, obviously. But yeah, you can. So then that actually speaks to my connection back to the continent. Every time, I mentioned there are 2 semesters. One starts in August, and then
June,
the second one ends in June. Really, it was May. For university, it's really May. By the time, every year, what I would do is I'd come back and work in South Africa. So I had 3 months off, right? So in a calendar year, I have 3 months off of university.
Sure.
Consistent 3 months. So I'd come back to South Africa.
Okay.
The first year, I worked for a big, I won't mention names, but maybe the biggest beverage company in the world. You can fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
At their Southern Africa head office.
Sure.
So I did that. And again,
what are you doing there?
Marketing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. And again, for me...
So data analysis, data science...
Data science came way later.
Oh, is
right,
it?
Because I was just doing, it was an emerging field at the time, right?
Okay.
So the first year I definitely was doing a lot more watching than applying.
Okay.
I did more application by way of entrepreneurship in my first year.
Okay.
So that way, when my first summer came through, I did marketing. And marketing for me, again, when you break things down to the bare bones, as an economist or economist in training, also doing psychology, the two made sense for me, right? The if you understand the human behavior, and you can put essentially a dollar amount to what that is or what that could be, you are a valued asset in marketing. It's not obviously that simple, but if you break down kind of the complexities of the field, for me it came to that. And at the time, I had this teacher, a lecturer rather, who did behavioral economics. I was listening to a lot of Freakonomics as well. So I was like, let's see what this looks like.
Okay, just...
Cut down some things.
Okay.
A little.
I think maybe after. Okay, guys. Where were we?
Coming back to work home.
To work home, yes. So you were saying that you were...
Yes, so huge beverage making company.
Sure.
In fact, they make more than beverages at this point. It's if you think of the beverage that's more popular, well, second most popular to water, that's where I was working.
Definitely,
so that's what I did. And again, it schooling and experience, like you said, gives... For me, I've always been confident about the fact that at least the schooling and the practical experiences I get whilst I'm still in school will allow me to eliminate. The process of elimination is important for me, at least.
Sure.
Because when you are, oh yes, great potential, high talent, whatever, you generally feel like you can do any and everything.
Yeah, true.
But realistically, you won't be able to do that.
Just
so if I can
find your niche,
so if I can apply myself, so narrow down maybe 5 and actually start practicing in those 5 in some way. Obviously, the stakes are lower because I'm still in school. But if I get access to these huge companies and get to do internships with them, I can very much eliminate, no, this is not something I want to do. And so the clarity for me of knowing what not to do, it's just as important as knowing what to do. So I was kind of glad for that. I knew I could do aspects of marketing probably in a digital capacity, which I then kind of came back to do later on in my career. But marketing as a whole wasn't a place that I was going to make a name for myself in.
Sure.
That was very clear. Then my second and third year, I was working for an insurance firm. I won't mention names, but think of the biggest privately owned, so non-listed insurance in South Africa.
Okay.
That's who I was working for at their headquarters in Joburg as well. So for 3 consecutive years.
So sorry for that. I want to find out. So how were you getting these gigs? Were you just coming and then you had already applied, or?
Again, the power of the African Leadership Academy. Those guidance counselors that you are assigned in high school stay with you pretty much until you're 50. The same people, unless they leave and then you get assigned to somebody else.
Sure.
The guidance counseling, at first, obviously, when you're in the school, is more about what your life will look like after that.
Yeah.
After that, I'm still in contact with the person who will connect me to grad school experiences, scholarships. There are certain scholarships at this point that are even carved out just for graduates of the African Leadership Academy. You can think of getting a scholarship for a master's just because you went to a particular high school, right? Not because you went to a particular uni, but a particular high school. That's how deep that school goes into.
So beautiful, eh?
Amazing.
Wow.
If I'm stuck with something, sometimes I'm having trouble with a boss at work, there are industrial psychologists on that team that I can tap into. And they are divided by region, right? So this person takes care of people who are in this region, because then it helps when they want to come back to the continent. Those are the connections that person has. So the Southern African Connect guidance counselor in university guidance, the division is called lifelong learning, right? That's the department at the high school. Because learning is lifelong, and your needs within your career and your education is lifelong as well.
In our language,
I feel. And really learning in a sense, right? Continuous learning is a big part of that school. They strongly believe in that. So what they would do is they have a portal. We have a jobs portal. Our high school has a job portal. That's also another thing, right? Our high school has a job portal that's still very active. So you go on there, they host events, they bring in experts and different people. You can go in, get your resume refined if that's what you want. They do interview prep with you. They will find somebody in that company, or at least a top person working in that field, to come help you interview if that's something you want to do. So they have a portal for that. You can log in all your kind of requests on there. You can put in your profile, and then essentially, you know how like Careers 24, but like for our high school, we have that internally. So all the guidance counselors, whatever opportunities they go source, they bring onto that platform and then apply from there. So I can't remember. I don't think I've ever, in fact, applied for a job outside of that platform. In fact, most jobs at this point is more of like, you get a call. Hey,
so referrals now.
Yeah. In fact, everything post internship for me has been referral. But internship wise, you go into the portal, they'll say, hey, it shows on our system that you're in your second year. You're interested in ABC. Here's a curated list from what we have on the portal. You can go through that or explore essentially the portal overall. And so they do that, and that's how I got those opportunities. So unfortunately, this is not something I can say, hey, go here, do that. This is, inner circle type. Inner circle type things. But again, if you make it through that school, man,
you're set for life.
Oh my God. To this point, even if I want to start a business, funding, I'm starting on that portal. I'm not starting elsewhere, pitch competitions and all that kind of stuff. All those are great. But they understand that we had this training in high school. We don't need to be doing a lot of this kind of catching up leg work.
True.
Yeah, so essentially that's how I got those internships.
So I think on I don't know what word to use, but on a basic, they usually say that your background can be a platform to become who you are.
Okay.
Yeah, so with you saying that, it kind of like gives me an idea that if you grow up in a place where like all things, like in a very good environment,
yes,
it sets you up
100%.
differently.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Yes.
so when you say that, I was like, okay, you're not going through what an average South African is going through.
Not at all.
Like at all. Yeah.
At
so
all.
because we are just going to school and you finish your graduation, then you have to look for a job.
Yeah.
Go through all those
The motions of
yes,
it. Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
so it's really like cementing that okay, you can actually be in a certain environment which sets you up.
Environment makes a world of difference. It's not the only thing, right? Because then if we make it the only thing, then we're saying people who did not come from certain environments have no way of making it.
True.
No ways.
Yeah.
There are ways in which you can almost like course correct,
Sure.
along the way.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And again, most people who are able to do that are people who have had proximity to people who understand what environment can do.
Yeah.
So for me, it always comes back to environment. But I've also lived in a world where it matters most the high school you went to than really any uni you went to, because then if you set up there, if the thinking is set up there, it really does not. Sometimes it doesn't matter the degree you did. You could literally study, and I don't mean to minimize anything by way of kind of like lesser and more, but you can study art design, which is challenging in its own sense, but really mostly applicable in very particular setting or limited setting, at least in the South African context, and be an investment banker in New York. Right. And so those are, and maybe that could speak to the possibility of America as an economy, or, American dream that we kind of were referring to earlier.
Yeah.
Aspects of that could be true. But if the thinking is more of, no, I understand myself and I can understand how to carve my place in the world, that does more for you than many other things that we out here claiming can help people.
I think Allah, from the sound of it, is it actually, like, they sat down, they tried to understood like teenagers. Like, no, we're literally gonna be carving out teenagers to become.
Yeah, I don't think that was the case. So maybe there's a story. Obviously, ALA is great PR, great marketing. You can go look them up. The African Leadership Academy is what it is. There are many other leadership academies, so just looking for the African Leadership Academy. And how it came about, it was a grad school project, right? So, like I said, it was fashioned against the Stanford University MBA program. Because the founders met and really spent a lot of time, not really met as in for the first time, but kind of amalgamated in a sense their efforts there. Some were doing both the MBA and the MEd program, so Master of Education and all that kind of stuff. They had different experiences within education in their own personal lives prior to them meeting there. But really, this was a project, right? You have to do a project in your MBA. This was their project. This high school was their high school was their like MBA project, right? So then the idea wasn't more of understanding high schoolers, but more of delivering. Like, can they create a premium high school product and experience for the African continent, right? Because for a lot of them, they had studied Africans and some Americans. They're meeting abroad at these institutions, and it's not uncommon to find like Africans at these top institutions. We represent. That is no kind of question. That is something that happens. But the idea was that if we are so brilliant, why do we have to leave the continent? Can we not produce people who straight out of high school can do wonders, right? So as opposed to having, you're great in high school, but you still need to go get your accreditation in the States or elsewhere, and then work there, and then come back as a senior person who's a Grootman or whatever. Can we create creme de la creme, or at least like really formidable high schoolers on the African continent? So they thought of continent. I mean, they thought of content from that perspective for the African continent, which is why obviously a lot of it was tailored for the African continent and the African environment, right? Because obviously what they're learning in Palo Alto at Stanford is very different from the realities of the continent. And so kind of the work was to kind of repackage that. And they weren't thinking high schoolers, because if you think about it, it's almost like how you would do baby talk, right? If you think I want to understand high schoolers and producing a product for high schoolers, you will speak to them at the conventional level at which high schoolers get spoken to, which is just a basic high school. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That would just be another high school that's fancy. Exactly. Versus, right, it's the speaking gugu gaga and baby voice to a kid. But if you're speaking to a kid in a voice and a tone that is more conversational and very much assimilates to what everybody else is speaking, you're elevating even the addiction to that level, right? So they were building a product for the main goal, not necessarily the audience that they're going to be giving it to. Because in many ways, a lot of us have gone on to start projects where we're often the youngest in the room, even out of high school. I know high schoolers who left high school and went to start high schools themselves, right? If you think of that power, you need to have left high school with a particular thinking.
True.
You need to think of yourself in a very different way.
I mean, that means you're already like breaking norms.
Oh, the mold does not apply to you, right? In a sense. And so
Definitely,
if you think we can produce people who do that, you need to not build a product for high schoolers. You're building a product for future leaders, hence the African Leadership Academy, right?
Man.
Leading at whatever
Round of
age.
applause for African.
Oh my God. I feel like now this is an ad for, this has become the ad for the African Leadership Academy.
I love it. Literally. The thing is, but you see, it's practical and it works.
Yes, it does.
It's practical and it works. You see, if it was something which was like concept and you still have people who are going around the world and then they're nobodies, then the concept doesn't really work. But because I think even the worst person even comes out different.
Yeah. Oh, you change forever. Forever change. You cannot be the same.
Yeah, because it's really a beautiful thing. And then talking about ALA, do you have like private, because I think you guys, did you go in through a scholarship or something? Or do you have like private guys who private students?
So the scholarships at ALA work in the sense that they fund the school and then the school reallocates according to your need. It's a need-based type setup. I think the names have changed as to what that means because the implications are what need-based, merit-based, or all that kind of stuff. But essentially, if you make it into the school, it's need-blind initially. Right? As you're going through the process, they're not asking you how much can you pay, whatever. If you make it there, they're almost saying we're gonna work with you to find a way for you to figure out the money situation. So there's always, obviously, the starting point is the family contribution. Certain people are at zero and even work, a few campus jobs in there within the African Leadership Academy economy to kind of get pocket money or whatever.
And you said you had your own currency as well.
Yes, it didn't have a name before people started asking us about name, but I guess we had like our own currencies before.
Sure.
I think actually now it might have a name because I think the person who championed it was kind of adamant about, listen, the crypto world is out here putting like these coins and currencies have names, so we issue too. So I think now it does because, you gotta evolve and keep in line with the world out there.
Have you ever went back as an alumni?
Yeah, I'm always there.
Really?
Oh yeah, I'm always there. I go for every graduation. Well, I went back for every graduation until 2018. And also there are a good number of programs. So for example, when the Obama Foundation had their first event on the African continent, they had it at the African Leadership Academy. So as alumni, we were part of the facilitators for that and the Obama leaders and all that kind of stuff. So we were actually part of the staff that was delivering our unique curriculum because we graduated from it. So we're delivering that to all these great ministers across the country, across the continent, business leaders, as well as social entrepreneurs. So it was really great. So I'm there for different reasons, but almost always you can find me around graduation. Obviously not this year because I'm in Cape Town now and graduation is today in Johannesburg. But yeah, I go back there all the time. I think of it as an umbilical cord. There's so many ways and reasons to stay connected to the African. It's built for that. If you think about all the things that I've been mentioning, if I'm going to be applying for graduate school in Europe right now, the best place to know what scholarships, how to shape my essays, how to do my interviews would be the African Leadership Academy. They have the plug. If I go back to the cord, right, like the medical cord,
true.
They have not cut it, and it works in your favor to keep it running. Someday my closest friends, deepest relationships, still this day, I can trace back to a little bit of St. Brendan's, but a lot of ALA, even though I spent a short space
it makes sense because, there it was more intentional. There we were just kind of like...
you gravitate to who you gravitate towards.
True.
Yeah. So it's I'm still in touch, and they make sure. Sometimes they'll have like events for like South African families who want to know what it's like. So I will kind of show up on a panel or two. Stuff like that. Right now, I'm on the board on one of the student enterprises that does marketing over there, and so there are many ways to contribute back, obviously not just money, but as an alum, because it's a like I said, it's an ecosystem that has a lot going for it. So in the many ways, people served on our boards when we were running our enterprises. I get to do that for kind of other generations as well.
the can I say founders? Are they like young people as well?
No longer young. They were young when they started, yes, because obviously they were in graduate school. I think they're all in their 40s now.
Really?
Yeah.
40s is young, eh?
It is young. I think it's because of how much they've done since. Because then now, the African Leadership Academy obviously was, it was the source, right? We call it the Mecca. We shouldn't, because that's taboo. And apologies to the Muslims listening. But it's a Mecca of sorts. We now have what you will find in the world, the African Leadership Group. Right. So there's the African Leadership Academy, which is the high school. So there's one and one only. Okay. But there's an African Leadership University. Has presence in Mauritius and Rwanda. So the high school now has two universities running.
Yeah, true.
We have ALX, which is pretty much, if you think of the way in which we do so MOOCs, right, and online learning and self-learning and kind of like certificate type learning, where you can take your previous knowledge, transfer the skills into a new domain, and then essentially apply yourself. So lots of software engineers in East Africa now are coming out of the ALX pipeline. Sure. So that is based in Kenya, but very much offering services across Senegal, across the Ivory Coast as well, I believe. Maybe Nigeria is coming up soon. But there's a team that's kind of figuring that out. There's ALN, the African Leadership Network, which is for high-powered senior professionals. So that's those. There's ALN. You can find a lot of kind of YouTube stuff for that. It's a very, very interesting place. And then
so you guys are
many
kind of
others.
Creating your own, literally your own network. Of wow, that's so.
Networking is huge. I mean, I was networking with some serious names in high school. I was just like, am I in the room? Me? What? And your contribution there obviously is very small, but they want you to see. They want, none of it should be foreign to you. They want you to see. It must be something you can feel. You can practice it on your own, because we used to have like practice networking sessions, right? Like you put your name tag and then you go around the room. Oh, this is why I am, elevator pitch. Who you are, what you're about, what are you interested in, how to just keep a conversation tire kicking going until you can get to a point where you're like, oh, okay, great, we can collaborate, or let's exchange numbers. We actually had practice for that. So, yeah, in many ways, and I mean, I can go on and on and on. There are many facets to the AL group, right? The AL ecosystem, the room, and all that kind of stuff, pioneered by the founders who, like I said, are very great people, young, but because again of the many things that they've done, very old in our eyes, and we've journeyed with them for a very long time. So
you guys were like the guinea pigs.
Yes. We had to be proof of concept in those early years. A lot of pressure on us. I'll say the first five classes at ALA and the many other classes at cohorts rather in the other institutions that have been born of the AL group, they know what that pressure is like, because then they're like, listen, we've had MasterCard, for example, bring in a good chunk of change around here. We need to make that worthwhile. What does that look like? And over the years, it pays off, right? Like that proof of concept kind of, you do your MVP, your minimum viable product, and then it kind of works out, and then it kind of pays off dividends, and then you go past the whole, you're no longer showing potential for earnings. You're actually kind of bringing in earnings, and then your margins and payoff then start showing up later on.
When you say that, it's one of my questions, where I was like, okay, you are literally in a different world, because you said this is what you said. I think it was on your WhatsApp status. You said that.
Oh my wow, we are referencing my WhatsApp status. Yo.
So this is what you said. You said. Revenue target for the target revenue net. Now let's deal on something else. I'm like, who talks about revenue this time?
Well, it's because now I run a business. I think that's
that's so nice, because I was like, okay, I think when I get into the running of the business, you will have to allow me. We enter into the 2-hour mark.
Okay.
So for those who are listening, you can even stop this and go do something else, but we're going in deep, guys. We just want to get as much knowledge as we can, right? So maybe that can be our transition, right, to get to the business. So before we get to the business, is it The business that you're running, is it also in data science?
Yes,
or
yes.
did you start by working as a data scientist?
Yes, I did work as a data scientist before.
Then before you started.
I ran a business.
Okay, let's get into the work, and then we're gonna get into the business now.
Okay. And the work part is pretty short because I didn't stay there for long.
Okay.
So when I finished in Texas, I came back to South Africa, and then I did my master's at UCT in economics. So continuing with that, but with a special focus in economic development. So master's in economics with a special focus in economic development. And that was, again, I wasn't studying it to be an economist. I was studying it to understand the world of development from an economics perspective.
Okay.
And so, I've done my internships in insurance, as management consulting, as well as marketing, and I've weeded out certain things I want to do, certain things I want not like. I now have a list of things that I know I definitely want to pursue. It does not look like one particular career, but I'm willing to and open to what it might look like. So anyways, I decided, I could also, at the time, also the great opportunity by way of scholarship and name recognition. I got the scholarship for the masters, came back, did that, and that's how I essentially decided, South Africa is it. I've been coming back every 3 months. Every year for 3 months.
Yeah.
Now I'm back for 2 years. I'm actually I landed into a community and I'm building a life that I kind of recognize, I'm comfortable with.
Sure.
I can do something with this, right? It does not look like much, but I can do something with this. So that's how I started. And then when I was still doing my master's, I did an internship within the research world, right, of economics. Because that's also something that lingers in your mind, right? Yeah, I feel like everyone who's done a master's has pressure to do something in research because then they want to feel like my master's and my research was worthwhile. We all have that bug. And if you say you don't, you're lying. But yeah, so I did that and actually got exposed to a lot of people who were doing great work in fintech because the internship was in financial research, economic research in financial inclusion, right? And so you get to work with a lot of fintechs that are building financially kind of forward-looking tools and resources, right? Because the world is largely, or at least Africa is largely unbanked, and people want different financial products, right?
Sure.
From risk, which is within insurance, which was the division I was in because I had 2 years of experience working as a management consultant within a insurance firm, stuff like that. So all these worlds are coming together, but so people want insurance, that's a financial tool that fintech can solve. People want a savings tool that kind of is accessible for them at their local spaza. That's something that they can use. People want a way to access remittances and money from abroad in a way that kind of makes sense and doesn't tax them as much, right? By the time the money comes to you, you still want it to have some value and you want it to be significant, to a certain extent.
Sure.
So fintech kind of was a solution to that. Fintech is not the only solution, just like to clarify. But I started working with a lot of fintech companies that were doing that. Sure. So that brought back the idea of kind of the startups that I was observing and kind of assisting with back in Texas. And then when I started working, I joined a startup. In fact, I've never worked for any company that's not a startup. I did my corporate thing in my internship years. And again, maybe another thing that let me know that maybe this is not a world I'd like to dive in because once you're in, man, it's hard to be elsewhere, right? It's a comfortable, cushioned place to be. But my curiosity, or at least my interests, were far beyond a role, and maybe I wasn't patient enough to kind of wait 2 years and then get promoted to a different division and then pivot from that and all that kind of stuff. True. The startup world worked for me. So I started working with a startup in digital marketing. That's what they did. But I was a data scientist on that team. Worked with a guy in ML, machine learning, and a guy in AI. So three of us kind of were three musketeers, a trio of sorts. Sure. And then because I had, if you do economics, obviously stats is something you're very comfortable with and familiar with. I had taken computer science classes in high school and stayed with the tech world, kind of like at the back of my mind, again in Austin as well. And so it wasn't foreign to me.
It had to start from somewhere.
Yes. And I just want to clarify because people think, I can just show up to a startup and say, I studied economics, I want to do it. No. That would be a lie. So that's what I did. And then prior to me starting that internship, like 3 weeks in, I kind of had to do a crash course on any and everything, right? So yes, the stats was there, the data visualization was there, the storytelling, I could do that with my eyes closed. Like certain things I knew, listen, I got this. And I could the business case and the business use, that I could do. Obviously, as an economist, I can speak that language.
Sure.
But I had to brush up on the tools that I was using, right? Because I was mainly an R type person, maybe a little bit of Python here and there, and stuff like that, and maybe get to understand. Yes, I won't be working with the machine learning capabilities, but somebody on the team will, and we need to be able to speak. It cannot be that when he's speaking, it's gibberish to me, because in that room, I'm going to be the non-tech person, right? The person with the non-tech background. In a way, my boss really was taking a bet on me. We went to actually the same university, the University of Texas. So funny, we met in Cape Town, and he had a company that was working that. Anyway, so we clicked and we had the conversation. So he understood just how much work I would need to do to, get up to speed. I was the only data scientist on the team. So I had to collaborate with other data scientists elsewhere. Right?
Yeah, sure.
I had to collaborate with other data scientists elsewhere because we're building a new business unit within the startup. Because again, digital marketing isn't necessarily the first place you go to as a data scientist and machine learning engineer or an AI researcher. But we all found ourselves there because there was a vision this guy was trying to put together, and we made sense. Till this day, closest friends, actually.
Yeah.
In Cape Town. I know I said that about the ALA people, that those are people in life. And the thing about ALA is literally at any point they could be anywhere in the world. So I don't see them on a regular basis. So that's how that kind of came together. Have been working in startups ever since. And it's really just that. The conversation with somebody who says, listen, the way you talk or the things you're interested in, we have clients that are mainly in this field. Yeah. So for example, when I was doing data science at the first startup, I specifically asked for clients that are kind of development phased. For example, if there was a university that was on the payroll or at least a client of the business, education is a big part of human capital development or development for the economy overall. Can I work with them? Yes, in their eyes, I'm just a cog in the kind of new business unit. But I know the insights I can extract from just what we're seeing, any level of data, whatever the magnitude, I know what I'm looking at. I know exactly what I can do. Again, I know what my value add is. And so the other stuff, yes, might have been scary. And certain things I was like, don't trust me with this. Just don't. Not yet. It's still early days. I still have more certifications. Very, very, again, true. I know what my value add is. I'm not there for smoke and mirrors. I don't want to, because then you actually need to give your reputation a knock. If you then start saying, I can do this, I'm going to do this for you. And then they're like, hey, and then you can't do this. And the startup world is small. At least in Cape Town it is. You don't want that reputation going around like, this one, she's going to sell you like lies. And I value people's time and resources. It takes a lot to run a business, again, having had experience at different levels.
I mean, having had the experience of actually running many, because you said you have been working
exactly, right? And at many levels, which is what I was saying, right? The stakes are different. But these are people who all their life savings, sometimes even all that their families have, is on the line here. And you spend a lot of time bootstrapping.
Better work.
You bootstrap a lot of stuff. By the time really people are believers, right? You've converted them to kind of like your evangelism thing. Really, you've spent so much money and time, right? Which is why the state is about like revenue targets. That's huge, because much as I don't run a startup, I run a small business. If you have a target and you actually meet it and you're profitable from the get-go, Yeah.
But I feel like maybe that also the mini startup is giving you a platform to kind of like sit down.
You know what like how my brain works. Has been reconfigured in a sense also, because with the startup you're very close to the decision making process. Every part of that business makes sense to you. And a lot of my friends right now who work in startups value that over everything. I know the pipeline from beginning to end. And even if it's not a startup and small team, when you're close to those conversations, to the decision maker, you're close to essentially understanding how the business works. This has to be ticked, this box has to be turned over, this one has to know this, who needs to know what, essentially and the workflow.
Brilliant people as well.
Oh, right? Yes. If they're doing it on a small scale, you know they're brilliant, because otherwise, a lot falls through the cracks and you can't survive as a business if too much is falling. These are people who are attention to detail. They're quick, they're fast. And even the levels at which I execute now, I was never like this. Like I said, I was a cruising man. I cruised through a lot of life. And then now, if somebody mentioned something this morning, we need some prototype for it by the end of the day. You're still thinking, I'm going to research. Let me see, watch YouTube videos of what this one is doing. by the time we on our way home, like if we're carpooling or whatever, this person is talking about, oh yeah, I have a prototype for it. I think I just need to go. The research they're doing is more on how to improve on a prototype, because execute.
Sure.
That speed at a startup,
it's valuable.
it is
true.
crazy.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. And if you decide, and not that you have to, some people, if you go back into corporate and then understand that now, again, where they can position themselves is very different. They go back on a much senior level.
It makes sense why you say established corporates are comfortable. Now, because when you said it first, I didn't really understand what you meant.
Yeah.
But now when you're talking about executing and everything, because it's like you have to be on your toes, getting things done. And
something that's set up, there's bandwidth, right? And you yourself, even as an employee, salary is coming at the end of the month.
True.
So even if you take your time, you collaborate with this team and that team, the people who can do R&D, certain things you can afford to move slower. The relationships have been built. People trust you.
Yeah.
They can take your word for it. A lot of groundwork has gone into a corporation, large corporates, right?
True.
And kudos to them. Great for them. But when you're working in there, maybe with the kind of desires that I have, it wouldn't have been great for me. I know I would have been bored. Yes, early salaries, early career. Oh my God, you're earning this much, earning that much, whatever. Because there is a risk, right? Once you deal with like heavy bonuses and like really turnaround times within startups, it's a hit or miss. You could make significantly more than your peers, or you could just make, okay, that's what you took home.
True.
And especially if you diversify your pay into like, a few stocks, a few other investments here and there.
True.
By the time they cash out, maybe, but also they could crash because it is what it is.
Coronavirus.
So stuff like that is
true.
It's a gamble. But again, when you have the kind of desires that I had, and you trust that your journey you're okay. I have enough systems around me cushioning me, right? Like I said, I do not live the average life of a South African in a sense.
True.
And again, my boldness, maybe going back to the first thing we mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm emboldened, right? I'm not
true.
just bold. I'm emboldened
True.
by a lot of people in a lot of systems that have privileged me. I live in very privileged systems, and I don't want to lie to people about, you can just quit this, do that, avoid that, or whatever. If they're giving you good money and you need good money, take good money.
True.
If you find that there is a way for you to navigate your way around, out of the thing, back into it, whatever, do you. But for me, it has worked out that way. And again, I think a lot of the groundwork was laid earlier. But I can comfortably walk into a situation and trust that I'll be fine, and trust that I can find my way. But again, I am emboldened by a lot of systems.
So with the, because I like this conversation because it's very practical to where everyone is at the moment, right? Because everyone wants to be a startup, and some of them, they want to get it face value without the training. Because I feel like you've got as many trainings and as many chances to. You've seen the ups and downs of a startup, right?
Yeah, because 1 year at a startup is definitely maybe 3 years at a corporate.
True.
Because how close you are to the to the
so you see, because there's a buzzword like start your own business, start your own business, and I feel like there's a world of knowledge. Because right now when you're talking about business, I'm not trying to discourage myself as well, but just to make someone understand, okay, what is on table, which you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
So what advice maybe can you give for someone who?
What advice? I get sweats whenever somebody says that to me. What advice can you give?
I know, because the thing is,
but do continue.
We're trying to not necessarily make people be comfortable, like we were talking about, like, okay, there's a comfortable place and there's a place where there's going to be risk needed. Yeah. And there's going to be you needing to be swift in terms of making your decisions, right?
Yeah.
So what are the, from your experiences, right? What are the things that you can say, okay, guys, look out for this 1, 2, 3. This can help you in terms of your startup. And
that's...
You can even
touch
on character as well, if there is that part.
Yes.
But just feel free to just go.
I think I would be best suited to give feedback on that from just a general entrepreneurship perspective. Because much as I work for startup, I left to start a small business. By the way, I don't run a startup because I've been, it's like an Icarus. You're close to the sun there. I know what that heat is like. And no, it's not for everybody. I'm not in a place in my life where I'm willing to put all my resources, my energy towards that. So I run a small business. I call it my small spaza. I run a spaza. It's a small business. It's, data science consultancy for, eclectic group of clients. Yes, we do have international clients and all that kind of stuff, but it's a small business by every sense of the word. We do okay. And we are on track and everything is, going okay. We are 8 months in, which is crazy to say, 8 months in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So thank you. Let's wait for the 1 year mark. Holding on, like, am I making it to a year?
Sure.
But we're small. And there's a key difference. There are key differences, I think, across board, and many people think of them in different ways. But for me, like I mentioned, we were profitable from day one. Right. I put together all my life experiences, all side hustles, whatever, all of it to say, let me pause from a 9 to 5 for a year. This is what I can do. Like, this is the product, this is the one area, the lane somewhat within digital marketing, where I said I can use the data science tool for this and it can be profitable. So we're profitable from get-go. Our growth rate, we are growing at a very linear state, and that was by design, very much in line with small business status. Mm-hmm. We do not have a steep growth scale. Please, that's startup world, because it requires a lot of capital to keep up with that growth. Okay. The kind of people and talent that I use is on a contractual basis, and a lot of favors from people who I've met throughout the industry.
I see, yeah.
Because if you say you're running a small business, people take a liking to that more than I run a startup, because now they're asking for checks that I ain't got.
Invoices.
Yes. These are people who, if I hired on a daily basis, they would take up all my budget.
Oh, I see.
Like, and I'd really have nothing to do with anything else. They cost a lot, right? And that's just the cost of startup world. They know if they're being poached, this is what it costs. Sure. They might take a knock here and there, but they know the payoff when maybe the company goes to IPO, gets acquired or whatever. It's a different conversation. Sure. It's not one that I can comfortably put on the table. Mm-hmm. So I am a small business, not a startup. Our projection for earnings, and by way of like maybe diversified products that we offer, or services or allied services or whatever, still very small, very simple, straightforward type stuff. I started with what I knew, with clients I knew. It has grown by word of mouth and very little marketing, if that. So yes, that's also another thing that's worth noting. I am a small business, not a startup. So I think that's always great for me to kind of start with, because sometimes you might feel like, oh, okay, this revenue, life is good, certain figures are being made there, so it's startup. No, it's a small business. But for people who want to start a startup, and again, like I said, I'm gonna maybe answer from an entrepreneurship perspective. Yep. Character maybe will be the first thing I start with, because you asked about that. You just need to have a certain tenacity about you, like almost dogged belief that this is it. And this is it not by way of stubbornness, but more of you are willing to take an idea, put it into a prototype, actually put it into some sort of market, even if it's a subset, test it out and see if it works. Your learnings need to then feed back into this works, right? Your tenacity is to kind of keep going at it, but it needs to be evolutionary. It cannot be circles, running around the same circles. It's like, no. In my mind, it was like this. Because they do say, within the startup world, understand you'll have almost 3 businesses. The one you have in your mind, the one that you build that will actually have the limitations of the world. Mm-hmm. Because if you want to take a unicorn and turn it into a goat, the world, we're not there yet. Mm-hmm. And if where you're at and where you're operating, and maybe the access to the software that you have is allowing you to only do ABC, do that. And then the last type of business is the one that your users will tell you have, sure. Right? So you have a thing in your mind, you build it, your second business number 2, you will very clearly realize it's not the one that you have on paper.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then the third one, where literally you could have built Facebook for Facebook was for rating girls' beauty in the beginning. Yes. You could have built it for that. And then your users take it and then they're now selling. It's a marketplace. Literally, it's Amazon of sorts now, right?
True.
What people use your business for is then now
it
becomes.
evolves with time.
Yes. And so your tenacity has to be in, it works. It's an informed doggedness around things working. And you have to really be almost like dedicated to things that work. Not things that should be, things that could be, all of that. It's great. In your heart will break a lot.
You're kind of like allergic to mediocre.
In a sense, sometimes you actually, and not even allergic to mediocre in the sense that obviously you want to put in mediocre work, but sometimes even your output will be mediocre, and you need to be able to take that. Like take that in very quickly. Like don't personalize it, attach too many emotions, whatever. This is mediocre work, and you will know that you are also capable of mediocre work. But there are learnings there. Are you able to identify those? Go back to the drawing board and come back to this thing fast. Second thing, and maybe is that speed. You cannot be an overthinker and be
Slow.
great at startups, like having a startup, right?
Okay,
because
say that again. Yeah.
You cannot be an overthinker and be great at running a startup.
Okay.
Somehow, if that's a character you have, find almost a kill switch that you can access.
Sure.
Because
stop,
yes,
true.
you need either it's a person or some way, some questions you need to ask yourself. 3 questions I need to ask myself when I have something that hasn't worked or whatever. Because if you overthink it, by the time you give us your product, there's one competitor that you didn't see coming that has already done that. There's an kind of affiliated platform that now gives us ability to do this thing. It does not look like what you want it to look like.
Sure.
But I'm not going to get a budget planner if my bank already has a budget planning tool embedded into the platform I had. You've been overthinking what this thing would look like. Hey, boo, other people have now added it onto the services that are already there. Right? You have to meet people on the path. And so the overthinking part it will slow you down. So speed, but informed speed, right? Which speaks to the first point. And I mean, there are many other things, but kind of knowing the talent part is a big part of it. Keeping the talent, whether you have them full-time or on contract basis, building the team is maybe what might make or break the scaling part of a startup.
Yeah, makes sense, yeah.
Right, so in the beginning, you, like I said, calling in favors, whatever, these are people you know.
Yeah, and I mean, it's even volunteering and...
so then now people are asking for their worth, now the kind of capabilities are thinning out, so you need to bring in more people, and kind of what you want to do is a lot to ask. Because there's a lot of capital investment at first. Capital, be it money or talent-wise, or even hours. You're asking people to work ridiculously hard in the beginning. You know it's going to pay off. You know because also a big part of kind of your startup talent, they have to buy into the vision more than just what a corporate company can tell you when you're interviewing for them, because you are like working people to the bone. You are asking a lot from them, and if you can't really get that right, it's tough, right? And certain people maybe will take this conversation, branch it off into, hiring family and friends, this and the other. Listen, I'm not going there. You know what your people's capabilities are.
True.
But yeah, I would say those 3 are top of mind and key. There are many others, and maybe when it comes, and certain people I think might speak to the level of tech that you use, which is maybe another big difference between a small business and a startup. You can... because our tech is not super sophisticated. We use just the general tools that data scientists use. But should we scale? Definitely we're going to need to scale in a very different direction. And we might start getting into startup territory. So the technical ability there. For me, that kind of speaks to the team. But the kind of tech that you use and how you're applying it, don't use it just for the sake of tech. You can't be the guy with a hammer thinks everything is a nail.
Oh, right. Okay, sure.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
Sure.
With great tech, but really nothing to use it on, or having people build tech that actually speaks nothing to the third business that you built, meaning the business that your users are telling you need. You could have fancied yourself a guy who has a tech startup that works in ABC way, and it's great and it can do this. Oh, look at how cool it is. But if your users are only using 30% of the capabilities, strip them up, like repackage them, put them in a different way, or at least use them to enhance the parts that they are using, or build future products. Like as the platform evolves, or as people evolve. So all of that needs to speak to the third business, because the first one is very personal, detached from that. The second one is the practical sense, right? This is when you have your team and you're actually using all these tools that you have and the skills that you have. Reiterating usually happens mostly in that second stage, right? Information we're gathering from when we fail or when something is mediocre or whatever. But the third business is essentially where your talent will make the most difference. So yeah, I would say it's entrepreneurial, maybe a little startup focused, but you are hearing this from a small business owner. Let me just say.
I mean, by the way, congratulations as well for being an owner.
Thank you.
I look up. Let me not. I look up to you, and I'm literally. It's literally the conversation that I'm having with you. Is literally the like I said. Remember, I told you about my mentor. Literally, it's the things that he would say, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay.
But
I should meet this mentor of yours.
Yeah, literally. I'll really set you guys up. But I just love the fact that there is a world out there which most people that I know rather.
Yeah.
They are in the corporate world. So we're not in the because this I feel like. If I have a conversation with you, I can hear that this is a world-changing conversation. Like, okay, these are people who are. If things are happening, I wouldn't be shocked to say, okay, this is what's happening. Okay, and then this person is actually running it. It will be. It would be
in line with what
you're doing. So, if the best that I can be is to manage some big corporate, yes, but I feel like most people, since we are talking about the buzzword of starting our own businesses.
Which you shouldn't just fall into, by the way. Those are tough things. Huh? It's not for everyone. And shout out to all the 9-to-5ers and corporate world people out there. Yeah. I love you. Love you a lot.
Yeah, we love ourselves.
Yes. Love you loads.
Love you loads, yeah. But I feel like this actually gives, maybe sobers some of us to say that it's okay, guys, let's stick in our lane for those who are still sent.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with it, right? And if it works for you, work for it. It works for you.
Yeah.
Go for that extra degree to add some new chunk.
And it could be like a great springboard, because I did work, maybe not in a corporate, but I did work prior. And a lot of the funding that has funded us in the first 8 months, a lot of that is from the work corporate, that I did.
Yeah. So it's coming back to say that these are the things which at least I'm glad that I have you here. It helps us to not only conceptualize, because every time when you crunch the numbers, you're like, I can make 1 million per month. You know
Fantastic.
I mean? But the moment you start sitting down and try to implement, you realize that, okay, because you were talking about my Acha business, right? Yeah, there was a time when I was like, no, man, I can do this thing. Yeah. And you do it, and you're like, wait, where are those numbers that I saw?
Yeah, the numbers on my paper, on the spreadsheet.
You understand what I mean?
Are definitely not what I'm seeing in the bank account.
Exactly. And you touched on that there's 3 business.
Yep.
That was the business in my mind.
That might be the biggest takeaway of this podcast. So, for anyone hoping to go into business, my friend, there are 3. Not just the one you have on your PowerPoint slide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm actually excited that you're also coming up with knowledge which will someone can use to say, okay, guys, I've heard of this, and you're playing around with showing, okay, this is, because you see, they usually say that if I am a what is the word? Let me think. So they say that if you you became successful overnight. Overnight success. Yeah. That overnight was actually 7 years.
Yes.
So it was overnight success, but there's a lot of school fees you have to pay to get to the place where you are. So I'm grateful for this conversation.
Me too.
I'm also grateful for my man of God, my pastor, who literally these conversations, he literally like because he's a founder of a church, right? And literally when I was talking to you, I was like, there's so much, and you see, with us, we actually work for him. We see. I'm starting to see that. Okay, so this is the type of person that you want to work with because ministry is different because you don't have to. Let me not put things which will incriminate us.
The business of the ministry.
You understand what I mean? But I'm actually seeing, like, self-reflecting to kind of like see that, okay, this is the type of person that I'm supposed to be for my man of God, so that we can just push this work. You understand what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Which we all have to do, I think, at different levels. The best thing to do, even as an employee at a 9 to 5, and I hate that we have this 9 to 5 thing, but anyways, like 9 to 5 slander is what I hate, but even as a business, you are very even as an employee, you are very valuable to your leader or your boss when you can essentially make their life easier.
True.
If you get that, like, yes, I'm great at my job, but do I make my boss's life easier?
Easier, yeah.
Oh, the relationship you have
when
there.
When you get to that point,
you make magic with them. They even bring you into the fold. Like, they bring you closer because, you're not dead weight, you're not a liability. This is somebody who... maybe not an asset in the asset sense, but you are an asset, right?
Yeah,
this is somebody who there's a love song that kind of this Nigerian guy sings. It's like, I love you because you're easy. Like, you don't stress me.
True.
Right? And not easy as in like you're easy to get or whatever, but just like I'm calm around you. You're a reliable person to have. I can say a thing, do a thing, and know that you won't sabotage it. In fact, you might enhance that experience. And certain people will boil that down to, this is a doer. But beyond that, you're a listener, you're a doer, you are supportive, you are, curious, you are all of that. If you can be that even on an employee level, you actually can get to see a very different perspective to work, money, success, business, whatever it is that you are kind of trying to get at.
I'm not sure if there's anything that we have to say.
No, not really. There's research that was done on me. Wow. I want to stop this before we get to the deep, dark parts that you got to.
We'll keep that for off the mic.
Yes, but I think the highlights were mentioned. In many ways, we were reminiscing, I think, in the beginning.
Definitely.
Kind of high school days, how we got to know each other. The main switch for me, just kind of, which was the African Leadership Academy.
True.
I think I've spoken at length about that. If you're interested, you can go look them up. And then what work has been like. It's been very unconventional for me, which is why, career days, I don't, because I'm like, what I'm going to say looks like nothing a lot of people say, but probably is very similar to what a lot of people experience, maybe in the corporate setting, and maybe might experience or realize it a little later within their young lives. But as young people, these are things that we are all experiencing. Me, maybe in a slightly isolated world, but the world nonetheless. So I think those aspects were covered. And I guess if people want to know like what my actual services are, they can DM me. They can DM you, and then you can let me know.
I think to make it easier, if you, like you were saying, because I've set this up in a way that if they want to get hold of you directly, I can just put your email there. So
that's dangerous, eh?
Yeah,
my email is a mess.
Depending on what you want. So whatever mode of communication, then you can just give it to me. Then we'll just put it down there, and then on the the description? Yes, on the description.
Yes,
yes,
in the description box below.
Exactly. So when I put it there, and then they can just like get a hold of you from there.
Yes. So I think I used to have this. I will have to just kind of find it, link, almost like a Google form.
Sure.
So it's you're not really getting any direct access, unfortunately, but it does go into a place that I do frequently check. So it's a link. You can open it up, tell me what your name is, what your email is, what you'd like to hear, whether you heard about me from this podcast elsewhere. Or if you want to collaborate, are curious about certain things, want clarification. I think I have the liberty to be transparent. I will be as transparent as possible.
Sure.
Beyond that, I think I can at least guide you to somebody who might be of better help than me at that point in time. But yes, I think I will set that up, send it to Shepherd, and you guys can link up with me there, because I've also been interested in some of the guests that have come through, and I've looked them up myself personally. So if any of what I said has been of interest to you, I'm glad and grateful that it was. And yeah, I'm, like I said, willing to step in when I can.
Awesome. That's Tege Podcast, guys. Thank you very much for staying for the past 2 hours and a half.
It's Tege.
Most people, they won't understand where Tege come from.
Yeah, I get it.
But you...
I know exactly what it is.
You know exactly what it is. But yeah, guys,
you just experienced Estege.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Cheers.
Bye.